Dub hosts in the house, never to be doubted. Why? Because I'm going to start this show with Superchats. Voila. Something you guys never expected. See, hey, life is like a box of chocolates, right? But welcome to the panel. As you can see the title of the show, Derrick Rose officially has retired from the NBA. We will get to our favorite Derrick Rose moments. We'll talk about our favorite Derrick Rose memories. We'll talk about some of the crazy things that happened over his careers, some of his highlights, potentially some of his lowlights. But all in all, we will remember his legacy and what he brought to the game of basketball. Salute to Derrick Rose. Salute to everybody that's here on the panel. I got a couple super chats that I want to start with. The first one is a $25 super chat from Gandhi KV2. From Teddy Hart. Teddy Hart said, I know people hate the per 36 stats. Understandable. But people don't realize Derrick Rose post-injury still gave similar production in his decreased role. Up until his Detroit year in 2021, his per 36 was still 25, 8, and 3. Sad day today, fellas.
Why is this sad? Like, is Derrick Rose dead? He's still alive, ain't he? I just want to make sure that I remember he's still alive.
Chill. In the basketball world, unfortunately, he's gone.
I think a lot of you guys.
Not accurate.
It's really not, because I think a lot of people. The reason why y'all so somber about this is because there was this part of people that always wanted to see that Derrick Rose was getting it back. It was going to come back. It was going to come back. And it never came back like everybody expected it to, even though, modern medicine had shown that, ACL injuries and things like that, you can survive that now. But Derrick Rose never really became what we thought he was going to become after that injury. And I personally think it was upstairs. I think that once he tore his knee up, I don't think that he ever thought that he could get back to being the guy that could play at the level of Irv, Curry, Russell Westbrook, all of these guys, Damian Lillard, James Harden. I don't think that because mentally you have to have a certain amount of fortitude to play at that level. And I don't think that he was mentally able to get himself back there, because we also are talking about a Derrick Rose who, it wasn't like his career was over after he tore his knee up. He played 11 more years after that. And we saw flashes of him, but we never really saw that guy again. And I think that was largely due to him. I think that was largely due to upstairs what he was.
I'm going to go around the room and I'm going to ask you guys some of the best moments or best memories that you have of Derrick Rose just throughout his career, and some of the things that he did that just will forever be cemented in your brain.
When he threw Goran Dragic in the bucket.
Man.
That was incredible. And I think that he struck a lot of fear in a lot of players that, a lot of guys didn't really want to see him. But that MVP season for me, Ron, what he did that year, that 25 and 8 on that team, even though that was a damn good Chicago Bulls team, none of us, I'm not going to say none of them, I won't speak for all of you guys. For me specifically, I didn't expect the Bulls to be that good. I did not expect the Bulls to be that good, to win 60 games, considering what Miami was looking like that year, considering what the Celtics were, the Orlando Magic. I did not expect the Chicago Bulls to be that good that year, and he was fantastic.
Pin, Mars, Swiper? Anybody?
I think a lot of us are going to say the 50-point game. I'll leave that one to whoever wants to discuss it. It was very meaningful. But, speaking on the retirement, right? The retirement that is now happening today. I remember him talking about this day a long time ago when he was getting injured, and, he's talking about taking a long-term approach to life, that how he wanted to still be able to walk and play with his kids. And a lot of people were really upset about that back then, because there was a guy, and it's really shut up and dribble, right? We don't care about your kids. We don't care about your life. We don't care if you walk for the rest of your life with a hobble like Shaq. We just want you to give us one more MVP season. And I appreciate anyone who has the maturity to go against the herd and just to speak the truth in that moment and just say, hey, man, this shit is bigger than basketball. It's my life. So I know that made him very deeply unpopular with the media at the time. It was very cagey, but I really appreciated him being candid, and it gave me a perspective of not only this incredible basketball player, which he absolutely was, and his love for the game is undoubtable, given how many times he came back and how many times he came back and how much that takes out of an athlete. You know, the rehab process, if you've ever been through it, it's crazy. To do that as many times as he did is even crazier. So anyone who doubted his love for the game, it was a
Pen, do
big.
you think that rehab process, you think that was largely due to him being with those injuries, how it affected him mentally?
No,
because I've always
no.
the reason why I feel like that, Pen, is because I've always felt like if I think I'm gonna get hurt, I'm gonna get hurt. And I think that once he tore his knee up, I think that affected him mentally, where he didn't play the way he could because he was worried about getting hurt. And I think that attributed to some of the other injuries. I don't think he just started breaking down.
Well, different schools of thought on this, right? Obviously, you know, you don't want to be going out there saying, okay, don't get hurt, because then, yeah, you do psych yourself out and you start to overthink it, and you probably will get hurt if you think that way because you overstress certain muscles. And that's true for all sports. But I do think at the same time that if you watched him play, you could easily see why he would get hurt. How he played was super reckless, right?
Mm-hmm.
His movement patterns were unnatural. I'd never seen anyone move like that in my entire life. If you watch Derrick Rose just move around the basketball court, everything is very unorthodox. His landing is unorthodox. His jumping patterns, his shift is unorthodox. And sometimes I'll watch him and be like, human beings are not meant to move this way. Right. And it wasn't just power. He was moving through people. He was moving around people. And, you know, one could argue his gait and his landing. And, you know, one of my favorite basketball channels, NBA Storyteller, did a video on Derrick Rose talking about how Derrick Rose just never learned how to walk right. And when it was going right, it was amazing because you couldn't predict his move. Like, he's coming downhill. You don't know where he's going to plant, where he's going to launch. Like, the Euro step is dangerous. And that made him very, very dangerous. And what people don't realize is he pretty much was, again, that earlier super chat, the per 36 minutes, he was a very productive player, even later on in his career. It just wasn't that volume, that number of games, that number of minutes, and that level of proficiency. But yeah, I think he remained largely a very good player for a very long period of time. But yeah, to your point about, you know, the rehab process and, you know, how it might have messed with him. Every athlete's different, right? Getting injured like that, it could really shake you up, you know, especially if you've never had one before. And I know that it shook Vince up first time he got injured, you know, and a lot of athletes are like that. So
for those who don't know, Derrick Rose has finally decided to hang it up and call it quits. He's hanging up his you know, patent and legendary Adidas sneakers, and he announced this to the world with a cryptic video after being waived from the Memphis Grizzlies last night. He's retiring at the age of 35, and I'm gonna play that video here too in a second. But Derrick Rose, he obviously is from Chicago, was drafted to Chicago, had an amazing career in Chicago, but he ended up in Memphis. He was in New York, Detroit, and he has some memories kind of all over. He was in Minnesota as well for a little bit. But this is the video right here that he put out just last night. And it kind of left the viewers, or those who actually seen this video, just in a weird, mysterious place, because it's like, Derrick Rose, what exactly does this mean? Obviously, it hints towards retirement, but at the same time, it could have hinted towards him going elsewhere as well. So here it is.
I think it's interesting. Excuse me. Can we hear that? No sound?
Yeah, no, it didn't have no sound on it.
Oh, okay. It didn't have any sound. All right.
So, yeah, back to favorite Derrick Rose moments. Mars, Swiper, would you guys like to chime in?
Go ahead, Swiper.
Hello, Mars. Hello, Penn.
Hello.
Haven't seen you all in a while.
Hello.
Random, but that made me think about Demaryius Thomas's retirement. Just the scene of him being behind the couch and all that stuff. But favorite Derrick Rose moment. I mean, it's probably still high school in Kansas. I mean, his high school video is one of the best I've ever seen in my life. I remember Derrick Rose, he came out 07 chill. Know what it was? High school?
Oh, yes. At high school.
High school 07, yeah.
Yeah. So he was a year ahead of me, I believe. So Mars, I remember watching him in Simeon. And I remember like just watching ESPN chill. He had that 25 jersey on, which everybody remembers, like obviously
the jerseys he was wearing this past weekend. And shout out to Benji too, but D Rose also is 25.
Right. But he did he had like these two back-to-backs. He had one Mars where he was like the rim was here. He did a windmill, like facing towards the rim, and just came back around the other side. But then he had another one where he did
right quick swipe it. That's the one where he fell, right? Where when he hit the ground, he didn't. He could. Dude was so high that when he hit the ground, he didn't land on his feet. Well, he landed on his feet, but he ended up slipping and falling.
It looked weird.
It looked weird, but
that real weird. That was an explosion, though.
Yeah, to me, everything D Rose looked like kind of similar to what Penn said. Everything he did looked weird because it was just indifferent. It was irregular. Like, how are you doing this? How are you jumping this high? How are you this explosive? How are you moving like this so effortlessly?
Yeah, and then also I think the two dunks he had back to back, Kansas obviously, but D Rose D Rose was probably the most powerful non-Westbrook finishing point guard I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know if y'all remember, D Rose had a back scratcher that he caught coming down the rim in Chicago one time, where he basically like head at the rim. I'm talking about full extension back and like yang. So like I just remember that D Rose, like how explosive he was.
Where was Derrick Rose, Swiper, Memphis, in the pantheon of where's Derrick Rose in the pantheon of league guards? So just during that era, Russ.
No,
Irv,
Russ wasn't there yet in 11, 12.
When I saw him and Russ, I thought Russ was better than him. I did. So Russ, Irv,
so remember 11,
Curry.
12 was Wade, Kobe, D Rose, Darren falling off at that point?
Yeah, he was falling. Darren Williams was going the other way.
Jason Kidd was still in league, but Jason won that next year. Yeah, Paul obviously. Derrick Rose was like
2011. He
was making a push for best guard in the league. I don't think he ever got there, but I think that 11 year in particular, I think that he was just like he was at a different level. But again, it was just like his explosion, and the thing about D Rose when he was fully healthy is even the height he got on his jump shot, like how high he would get and how he would get the shot up, especially from the mid range. So, I mean, Derrick Rose's overall explosion, he was just a tenacious, like half court finisher. I mean, he was John Morant for John Morant, but just more violent than John Morant was.
I don't get why. Maybe it's me, Ron, because I just feel like this is a real somber way to talk about this dude. The dude played 10 more years. He won the league MVP. It is a what if, and it's a what if in the aspect of what if he could have been mentally tougher. I think that's it more than anything, because he played 11 more years. It's not like what if he didn't. It's not like what if in like Penny Hardaway, where Penny Hardaway injuries realistically slowed him down, and he didn't play much more after that. I think that when Shaq left, I think he played 5 more years after that, 5 or 6 more years after that, and then that was it for him. Derrick Rose played 11 more seasons, 6 more at a pretty high level. I mean, he was on that 15 team that was in the Eastern Conference semifinals. He made the All-Star team, I think, after he tore his knee up, if I'm not mistaken. So, I don't understand why we're talking about Derrick Rose like, yo, the dude played 16 years in the NBA, and he seems to be stepping away from the game in peace. It isn't like he's stepping away from the game sad. He's stepping away from the game in peace. Like, yo, I did everything that I could. I broke down, but I still was able to be productive. Is Derrick Rose a Hall of Famer? If he's not, he'll be the only NCAA finalist and league MVP not to be in the Hall of Fame. He'll be the only one.
Yeah, so Basketball Reference just put out a post basically saying that his Hall of Fame probability is 10.5%. Is that low?
Well, yeah, so it's
that's
a low
very low.
number, but I've seen some players who they have very low probabilities and they made the Hall of Fame. So
I've never
it's
seen
not.
anyone with lower than 30 make the Hall of Fame.
I'm pretty sure Reggie Miller's is like 23%.
Really?
I'm
Reggie
pretty
Miller
sure.
after 18 years?
Yeah, because he only had like 3 All NBA teams. I'll check because I don't want to lie to you guys, but I'm pretty sure. But I wanted to ask, so is Grant Hill not mentally tough to you, Joe?
Is Grant Hill not mentally tough?
Oh, Reggie Miller, 31%. My fault.
So 31%. Is Grant Hill
Did I
not
say
mentally
30?
tough?
Yeah, you said no one below 30%.
Yes.
So Reggie Miller just
That's
scraped
right
by.
on the
I think Grant. I
sweet
think
spot.
Grant Hill is in that same category. A guy who, once he got injured, he was never really the same. And it Mars, I don't think you understand. I don't mean you specifically, but I don't think people understand that athletes play. Their fuel is their confidence. You chip at that confidence when they aren't physically able to do what they used to be able to do. That breaks them down mentally. That's where the line comes in terms of confidence. So a guy like Grant Hill, who's had 2 ankle surgeries, I think in like back-to-back seasons, mentally that starts to screw with you. Maybe I can't do what I used to be able to do. And Grant, I think he played what? I think he had that ankle injury in what, 2000? Maybe 2000.
And I want to say like once he got to Orlando. So what was that, 01 or whenever?
01. And he played at, and these are prime Grant Hill years, like 6 or 7 more years. But mentally, it did mess with him because I can't run as fast as I used to.
Well, that's a big thing. You keep bringing up mentally. Let's talk.
But that
about
doesn't mean
physically.
you're not mentally tough, though.
Yeah.
That just means like that's just. I want to say it's borderline natural. Like
I think the broader context of Derrick Rose's life would show us that he's one of the most mentally tough people ever. Wouldn't you agree? Like how he grew up, what he went through, how he got through all those injuries, becoming a league MVP.
Right.
I mean, and this is like we don't often like really even care to think about what a person goes through to even make it to that point. But to become one of the, let's say, 5 best players in the league in his absolute apex. Some people might fight back on that and say, he wasn't quite there, but I say he was right there, 5 to 6, to be that good that early, that took a lot of work. That wasn't luck. And to overcome, where he was coming from, the hardships. Most kids don't make it out of those situations. That's just the truth, right? So that takes a lot of mental toughness, in my opinion, to choose the gym every single day, to go in 5-6 hours a day, to shoot 1,000 jump shots, etc. When you got every pressure in society pulling you different ways, you got shit going on at home. I grew up like that, and I got to tell you, most of the people around me went the wrong way. I went the wrong way. Most of us went the wrong way. It's difficult to go the right way, to go the Derrick Rose way. So I'm just going to say that's mentally tough.
But with everything that you just said, that's a fair point. So that's a fair point, Penn. But as an athlete, when my quote unquote superpowers are zapped, that does mess with you mentally. And I feel like that's what broke him ultimately. Where I don't think that he felt like, now I'm not arguing him being able to get out of his situation. His situation was definitely a difficult situation. But this is also a guy during that time who still had his superpowers. That's what enabled him to get out of his situation. Well, now I don't have that anymore. Okay, well, what am I holding on to? Can I do the stuff that I used to be able to do? And I feel like with that knee injury, I feel like that broke him mentally.
Can I point to the obvious, I think obvious conclusion is that sometimes we get a little too far in terms of how good we think certain players are. And then we spend like 5 years maligning them for not being as good as we falsely accuse them of being. Like when someone comes out and says Vince Carter is Michael Jordan, and then he doesn't turn into Michael Jordan, and now he's soft because he didn't turn into Michael Jordan. Unfortunately, the shadow of Jordan looms large over any athlete, especially an MVP, who puts on the Chicago Bulls jersey. And when you look at a guy like Derrick Rose, the youngest MVP, the expectations that come with that, and when we, in retrospect, and this is not shade on Derrick Rose, big Derrick Rose fan, love Derrick Rose, but please understand, one of the weaker MVPs in league history. Okay, absolutely. Probably before his time. Maybe people liked him. Maybe people wanted to give a Chicago Bull an MVP. Maybe it was because of team success, whatever. Whatever expectations came levied with that raised realistic expectations of what you thought this player was going to be. And so when he didn't become that, everyone said he was soft, he didn't care about basketball, etc. But might I point to the obvious, he wasn't as good as people said he was, and he wasn't ever going to be as good when his athleticism fell, because again, most of his success was being predicated not by skill, not by size, but by athleticism, by freakish athleticism. And when you lose that inch, it's not about being mentally soft. If Allen Iverson can't burst the way Allen Iverson bursts, he's not mentally soft because he's fallen off. He just doesn't have the advantage that, with undersized guys, especially with guards, quick twitch guards, this. It's a game of like a quarter second. You lose the quarter second, you lose it all.
But wait a minute though, Pin. Can Allen Iverson not burst because he's older, or because I don't think I can do it anymore? Maybe it's still there. I just don't. I just don't think.
Yeah, I don't know why you keep
bringing
that.
Carmelo Anthony come out year after year still thinking he was an MVP candidate, and he just fell off. Look, it's not all mental, man. Like, we can't be psychoanalyzing these players. We don't have their medicals in front of them. But I can tell you visually, looking at Derrick Rose dominating the league in 2010, 2011, that a lot of his advantages were because of his movement. How quickly he was moving from one place to another. It was just too fast. No one could stop him.
It has something to do with mental, Ron. There is a mental aspect.
Clearly it doesn't.
Hold on. Because look, the thing is, like, yeah, when you get hurt, you might not ever feel the same. You never know. It might slow down a little bit, but there is also that aspect of you not knowing what your body can do. You not knowing if you can still do what you did. There's definitely an aspect of, okay, well, I never got hurt before, and damn, I just tore my ACL doing this. Like, that can happen again. So there is definitely a mental aspect to it. Now, it may not be as big as maybe, I don't know, maybe if y'all think Chill is hyping it a little bit, but I mean, there's definitely a mental aspect there, y'all.
I'm not downplaying that.
Yes, you are, Ron. Yes, you are, Ron.
Okay, go ahead, Mars.
No, go ahead.
Well, okay, this is Chill. You're saying it solely based on mental.
No, I'm not.
You're saying that when players get hurt, like a player like Derrick. So I'm gonna use Derrick Rose and Paul George as an example. First off, Paul George can rely on his 6'8" frame when he doesn't come back as athletic. Second off, Paul George just happened to be more skilled than Derrick Rose. Right. Derrick Rose's game solely relied on him being the fastest player, the most explosive player, a strong player that can get downhill. He didn't play on the perimeter like that. When he caught the ball on the perimeter, his game was slashing, getting to the hole, finishing over 7-foot guys like Joel Anthony and dunking over the top of him. So his game was in the air. Right. When you can't jump that higher, when you don't have that burst, Derrick Rose can't be Derrick Rose. If Russell Westbrook was to, have an injury that just derailed him physically and he couldn't explode and be in the air the same way that he is even today, he's not going to be.
But he did though, Ron. Okay, stop right there.
He could be the most confident player ever.
Isaiah Thomas. Look at what happened to Isaiah Thomas. Right? That injury, we're talking about a guy who was averaging nearly 30 points per game as a 5'9" guard, which is already the most illogical impossibility ever.
Right.
But you look at how he was doing it, and you saw, and apparently Danny Ainge saw, that he was hanging by a thread. And that thread was that injury. And when that injury happened, cooked. He didn't forget how to play basketball. He didn't lose his confidence. He didn't lose his swagger. He still got all that swagger. He lost the inch. You need an inch, man. You need to get separation. The law is true in basketball. The faster you stop, the faster you start, right? And this is going to be, at some point, your body is going to betray you. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant were very quick in their early 20s. Luckily for them, they were 6'6", 6'7" guys, so they could shift into being more powerful as they got bigger, right? D Rose didn't have that. Now, could he have, if he really, really stretched it? But can we be okay with an athlete maybe saying basketball is my whole life, and then having kids and having a family and being like, no, basketball is a really big part of my life, but it's not my whole life.
Right.
Is that okay?
I got no problem with that. I got no problem. Ron, your point would be valid if we haven't seen guys come back from major injuries. I watched Paul George break his leg in half. He broke his leg in half and came back and played at an all-pro level. I saw that.
I just gave you the analogy, though. They had two completely different play styles.
I saw Jamal Murray tear up his knee. He came back and scored.
Two completely different play styles. Two completely different guys.
The closest one would be Russ when he tore his meniscus,
and that was the next point that I was going to bring up.
But Derrick Rose tore. Like, I think we're forgetting like the timeline of Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose won MVP in 2011. 2012, he plays the whole season. Chicago is still good. He then gets hurt in that blowout game one of the playoffs, tears his ACL. He misses the whole next season, 2013. He comes back and within 10 games tears his meniscus and misses the rest of the season. It wasn't just, he played, he came back, was this good, and then mentally he wasn't tough. He came back and within 10 games, his knee got destroyed again. Then he came back in, I want to say, was it 14, 15? It was one of the next years.
Yeah, 14, 15.
One of those next years in Chicago, he tore his meniscus again. He's torn his ACL and torn his meniscus twice. Every time Derrick Rose has tried to come back and got to a level where it's like, oh, Derrick Rose, he looks good. He tears his meniscus again.
And I believe he did a full repair twice as well, which takes longer.
And then he went to New York. And then he went to New York. Then he broke his hand. So am I ridiculous to think that, like you just said, 10 games into the season, he tears his meniscus? What is that doing to me now mentally? The stuff everything that you just mentioned, Ron, playing above the rim, getting downhill. Now, physically, because my knee is now repaired, maybe I still can run fast. I still can jump high. But mentally, am I thinking, can I still do that? Am I going to get hurt if I try to do that? Bob McAdoo told Dwayne Wade, if you keep playing like this, you're not going to last. This was in year 3. He told him that you have to change your game. Otherwise, you're not going to last. When Derrick Rose breaks down with modern medicine that we have today, right? And even back then in 2014, when Derrick Rose breaks down, tears up his knee is repaired. What's going on with him mentally? Again, I don't know. But what is the question I'm asking is, what is going on with him? Can I still run as fast as I used to? Can I still jump as high as I used to? That affects other aspects of my game. That affects other aspects of my body. Because if I'm doing this, playing worried, I can tear up other stuff. That could happen. Or the other side of that, because Moss, 2 things can be true. Maybe physically, I'm just not there. Even though I'd never seen anything from Derrick Rose previous to him having this injury, I'd never seen. You already told me about what happened with Greg Oden before we seen him in the NBA. I hadn't seen anything with Derrick Rose in terms of injuries. Nothing like that was going on. Now, all of a sudden, he tears up his knee, and then he starts to crumble. Everything starts to crumble one thing at a time. Is that I have to believe that some part of that is mental. It's not just him just being physically unable to do it, because he wasn't physically unable to do it 2 years ago. Now all of a sudden he's just physically unable to do it.
Your body's a little different after you go through.
He was
multiple
22,
surgeries.
Ron.
Yes, and then he tore his ACL, and then he was 23, and then he tore his meniscus, then he was 24, and then he tore his meniscus again. He was 25. He was not the same at 26 as he was at 22. And yes, you're right. He wasn't the same mentally, but he definitely wasn't the same physically, because I guarantee if he could run as fast as he could, if he could jump as high as he could, if he was as explosive as he could, we would have seen the same Derrick Rose. It would be the same thing. But as guys get older, their games aren't the same. They tend to get worse because they lose that physical burst. Unless you are a Kevin Durant and you're extremely talented. Unless you are LeBron James and you're still physically imposing, but also you're just more mentally advanced than everybody. Unless you are Steph Curry and you have a superpower that can't nobody else touch. That other than look at Klay Thompson. He's a shell of himself. Why? Because he can't laterally move. He's not the Klay Thompson that he was when he was younger. Klay Thompson only had a little bit of burst as is. He lost that. Now he's out there looking like an old man.
I think that was a little bit different, Ron. That was a little bit different off the strength that he was much older than Derrick Rose. But
he was also less athleticism reliant. So I mean, I think I want to find common ground. We can all agree some component of this with Derrick Rose is a mental thing, right? Just like all injuries, some of it's mental. I think the disagreement we have with Chill is you said he wasn't mentally tough enough. I think that's where we disagree. I'm not gonna, I guess, accuse him of not being mentally tough enough because he didn't come back from injuries. Other people have come back from. Everyone's bodies react differently. I'm not going to say Kawhi is not mentally tough because he hasn't been able to get through what he's dealing with, or Grant Hill wasn't mentally tough because he had to miss 3 seasons with an ankle injury, and even though he carried on playing, he never got to that level again. I'm not going to say those things, but I think we can all agree all injuries affect you mentally as well as physically, no matter who you are. Whether that was Michael Jordan when he broke his foot, I'm sure there was a mental component for him, or whether that was LeBron James when Solomon Hill dove into his ankle, I'm sure there was a mental component for him. But I wouldn't say he's not mentally tough because he wasn't the same player when he came back. I think it just
So why wasn't he though? Then I mean,
Here's the thing.
I can
everything
appreciate.
is baked into this idea because he's an MVP, right? You
Right.
take that MVP trophy out, and you would look at his career completely differently without it, right? And I'm saying kudos to getting it,
Right.
but a lot of people at the time felt that there were 7-8 players in the league that were better. So after a few years pass, right? First of all, even if he had never gotten injured, there's a really good idea, like there's a really good chance that if he didn't work on his outside game, if he didn't become a much better outside shooter, if he didn't change his game or evolve his game the way D-Wade did, the way Michael did, that he was going to be like probably a sub all-star. So even without the injuries, how good did you expect Derrick Rose to be? Again, the expectations levied becoming the youngest MVP, it creates precedent that you're going to be Magic Johnson. Guess what? Derrick Rose not turning into a 6'9" passing wizard like Magic Johnson.
But Pim, how does that work when Russell Westbrook came into the league and
Russell Westbrook is a completely different level
after?
of athlete and a completely different type of athlete. I'm not saying that like he's like
Derrick Rose?
yo,
Then
you
Derrick
know
Rose?
that,
What?
you know
What?
that Russell Westbrook's a better player than Derrick Rose ever was, right? You know that, right?
I do know that.
Like I think everybody knows that. You don't know that, Ron?
I feel like
Ron knows that more than anyone. Ron knows that.
Ron's like the Westbrook super fan. But of course he is. Of course Russell Westbrook is. Derrick Rose at his prime was never going to average a triple-double. He wasn't like that prolific. And I mean, you know, different types of players. But again, when a player falls off, they're going to fall off to about 30% worse than what they were. And you're not going to be angry that Grant Hill fell off to being 30% worse than he was, or Vince Carter fell off to 30% worse than he was, or even Kawhi Leonard fell off to 30%, because that's expected. The question then becomes, is when you fall off from 30% of what KD was, you're still an all-star. When you fall off from what 30% of what Derrick Rose was, you might just be a starter. That's the gap. D Rose was never Kevin Durant. He was never Russell Westbrook. He was never Magic Johnson. He was never any of those guys. So you can take a look through all of league MVP history. He's probably one of the worst players to ever win MVP ever.
Man,
this is going to sound like hate.
Not being
it's
fair,
not
though.
hate.
I'm not going to say that you're hating.
He
I
had
just don't
room
think
to
you're being
grow.
fair.
That's what you were.
I'm being completely fair.
He had a lot of room to grow.
Why?
Yeah, he was only 22, 100%. He was 22
okay.
years old. And to Mars's point, when you brought up that he wasn't mentally tough, okay, let me expand on that, Mars. Maybe he wasn't mentally tough enough to get back to the level that he was. And the reason why I bring that point up, because I saw other guys who were mentally tough enough to get back to the point where they were, even if it was only for a little while.
Toughness thing, Chill, because what if his trainer literally looked at his injuries and said, you got to stop doing what you're doing. You can't do what you're doing. You can't be sprinting down the court in 4 steps and landing.
That's my game, though. That's who I am. Now, don't get me wrong. I can change it, but I can change my game. That doesn't mean that I have to completely do something different. That's what you're asking.
That's what
I watched Dominique. I watched Dominique Wilkins tear his Achilles. He came back and averaged 30 a game.
Comparing Dominique Wilkins to Derrick Rose.
The reason why we're doing that is because his game was predicated on athleticism, and that's
but Dominique Wilkins is 6'8". You know that.
Even if he was bigger, the fact that his game was predicated on athleticism, that's the point. And the fact that I saw Paul George, even though to Ron's point, he was bigger, his game is predicated a lot on athleticism. And for Paul George to have a compound fracture and break his leg in half off a guy that's that big at 6'8", almost 6'9", and to come back and play at the level that he played at, which was an all-league level, which is a league MVP level, that takes me being a lot tougher than a lot of people to get back to that. And I think that, to Mars's point, when you said that doesn't make him that doesn't mean that he's not mentally tough. It doesn't. But there might be some guys who are maybe tougher who can do it.
Is there any small guards who are elite athletes who had like career-altering injuries who came back better than they were?
We have to differentiate between athletes who are power athletes like Baron Davis, power athlete who maybe jump high but are a different class of athlete. Kyle Lowry, super athletic. Russell Westbrook, super athletic. You got to differentiate those guys from those finesse, quick twitch guys. Okay, there's completely different muscle groups, like not different muscle groups, but different muscle types involved here. I'm not a head athletic trainer, but I talk to a lot of trainers, and I wish Jordan was on right now so he could tell you what I'm talking about. But like, it matters that how you get your advantage. Some guys get their advantage through strength, upper body strength, lower body strength, low base, whatever. Some guys get it through skill. You got to do something. Maybe you get it through your quick release. Maybe you get it through the fact that you're taller, that you can bump guys off the spot like Kawhi. But for Derrick Rose, how he was getting his advantages, someone I would compare to Derrick Rose in terms of just how he gets his advantages, Pascal Siakam. Much bigger version of it, but same kind of shifty, kind of unorthodox, crazy movement, and then he's just kind of coming around you. Did you watch Pascal Siakam in the bubble? You watch how much he fell off because he had a hamstring injury? That's what I'm talking about. You can't lose an inch when you're these guys, because when you do, it's like your whole game goes away. It's not like Jordan where you could just power down. It's not like Paul George where you're still bigger than everybody. Your advantage goes away, Cho. That's what I'm saying. Like
physically, your advantage goes away 100%.
Yeah, but you can't get it back either. That's what I'm saying. Because
yes, you can, because we've seen guys get it back.
Because you haven't seen an athlete like Derrick Rose. You've never seen anyone who moved like him on the basketball court. Find one player in the league that ever moved like him. You say Russell?
Also, too, I said also too, just because one guy got it back doesn't mean another guy can. Bodies are built differently, injuries, and not all ACL injuries are the same. So true. It's like, and not all recoveries are the same either. So I'm just under the belief that he never fully recovered and got back to 100%. Some people come back 110%. Some people come back 90%. Some people only come back to 60%. I'm under the impression he never fully got to 100, and it was even more closer to like 60 or 70 than he was of his previous self.
What happened to Steve Francis? Was he not mentally tough enough?
Oh damn! Adam West about to get mad right now.
Damn, right. Poor Adam.
What happened to Steve Francis, by the way?
Right.
In terms of his, like, did he have a debilitating injury? What happened to Steve Francis that slowed him down? Because Steve Francis Steve Francis didn't have an Achilles injury. He didn't have an ACL injury, but
you will see what happens.
What really slowed him down?
I think he had tendonitis. I think I might have just misremembered.
But Ron, to your point, all that stuff you just brought up, Ron, you have to put in the mental aspect of it. I'm not going to say that these guys aren't. When you come back, you're 60% or you're 90%. A lot of that has to do with being mentally tough. I'm getting back to where I was. A lot of that has to do with that.
When Chill hears that Steve Francis had to go out because of migraines, he's going to say he's not mentally tough.
If you've ever had a whoa, hold on, Pen. If you've ever had a migraine before and you're sitting in the room, because Steve Francis, I remember him talking about sitting in a room that's dark because he couldn't even stand up. That's how bad his migraines were. Those two things are not the same. No.
Okay.
No, those two things are not the same. But Ron, to your point, when you talked about these guys getting back to 90%, these guys getting back to 100%, these guys getting back to 60%. Yes, some of it is physical, 100%, because your body is different. But there are guys who, I'm going to play again, and I'm going to play at this level again. I'm going to get because I feel like a lot of that stuff is in your head. A lot of it is.
Manu Ginobili had a 20% Hall of Fame probability and made it.
On the first ballot, by the way, I think.
So
shout out Manu.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's still twice. That's twice what Derrick Rose is, and he has the championships, man.
Bernard King made it with an 11% chance. Bernard King made it with an 11% chance.
Damn. Okay, well then D Rose should make it, man. He's a good human story for basketball.
He'd be the only, like I said, he'd be the only NCAA final. There's no player in the Hall of Fame that played in the national championship and then won the league MVP in the NBA that's not in the Hall of Fame. There isn't one.
All right. Well, shout out to Derrick Rose and everything that he brought to the game of basketball. We wish you a successful retirement and hope things post-basketball are better than your life while you were playing basketball. Appreciate everything, Derrick Rose. You are a legend, not just in Chicago, but around the world. And thank you for everything.
Wait a second. We cannot close the curtain on Derrick Rose on such a sad note.
Yes, right? Please.
This was a monumental success story. His entire career was a monumental success story. Right from high school all the way. 16 years is no joke. The average NBA player, I think, plays 4 or 5 years. The average kid, from where he comes from, does not make it out. Derrick Rose is like batting 1,000.
He won. 100%
he has kids. And by the way, per the horse's mouth himself, he said he didn't want to force his game. He didn't want to force himself through injury, so he would have time after retirement. He had his eye on the big picture the whole time. So what did he say? This is not a goodbye. This is not a goodbye. He's going to be back. He's going to be doing podcasts. He's going to be doing something. He's going to write a book. He's probably going to make a movie. This is going to be a story that just continues to get better and better. And I don't think that, it's unfortunate every Derrick Rose conversation always has to get into what ifism, what he wasn't tough enough. Oh, he quit. Oh, he shouldn't have won an MVP. It's all negative, and I hate it. I hate it because this is like one of my favorite players of all time, honestly. And I just think that this is a beautiful career. It's a beautiful career, and we should all celebrate it. I don't think he has anything to be sorry about.
16 years. That's times 4. That's times 4 the average career. He played 4 times the average career. The average NBA career is 4 years. He played 4 times that.
Facts.
4. Won the league MVP. The younger,
made
even
millions
though
of dollars,
made hundreds of. This dude made a bunch of money, a bunch. So he's good. And on top of that, I got to win the league MVP. By the way, I got to win the league MVP on my hometown team where I grew up. How awesome is that? I grew up in Chicago, watching Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and I get to win the league MVP on that team. Oh, that's awesome! Awesome.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier too. That dunk over Joel Anthony. When he did that, that's when I just realized, the NBA might not be for me. Hey, I done put a few people on posters. I could dunk a little bit, but when he did that, that's when I was like, as a 6'3" point guard, it's Derrick Rose, and then it's everybody else at this moment in time. And I guess you could put Russell Westbrook in there too, but it's really Derrick Rose and it's everybody else. But also too, that game winner that year too. That probably eclipses my favorite Derrick Rose memory. Passes to Joakim Noah, comes off the dribble handoff, takes one dribble into a pull-up 3, knocks it down in Chicago. That was insane.
I don't know, Mars. Him throwing Dragic through the bucket. He had dudes on the floor making business decisions. Like, I don't know if I want to mess with that dude. Nah. Especially guards in particular. Because, if you see a dude your size, I feel like I can meet you at the rim. For Derrick Rose for Dragic to go to the 6th floor and Derrick to go to the 13th floor. Other dudes is looking at Derrick Rose like, if I see that dude at the rim, I should probably get out the way. Nah, I'm gonna leave that alone because I do not want to be on a poster. No.
He was reasonably athletic.
Yeah, he was.
All right, y'all. We're gonna go ahead and transition into these super chats. Make sure you know the drill.
Mm-hmm.
Like the video, subscribe, become a member, and just keep going, chat. Keep clearing and keep going. Gandhi KV2 sent through a super chat. He said, hate Mars for the simple fact that they got a Min Thompson. But Houston going to be better than OKC next year for sure.
Why you hate me because we got a Min Thompson? I ain't make the pick. I would have picked him, but I ain't make that pick. I don't know why that's my fault. But no, we're not going to be better than OKC.
But if you are...
Throwing them out early, respect.
If you are Mars, 100%, we're gonna hear that. If the Houston Rockets end up with the number 3 seed and they end up winning 55 games, some nonsense like that.
Absolutely,
but team in the league according to Tillman.
Yes,
bro.
Right.
We are a deep team.
Yeah.
Hope AJ Griffin is all good. By the way, I know he left. I don't know if he's confirmed retirement, but he's definitely not in the league now. Hope he's good, but
you guys bought him out, right?
Yeah, I don't know what he's going through mentally. I know it's been an ongoing thing for a whole year with the Hawks, and he wasn't playing. So I hope everything's good. I think mental health is very important, especially when it comes to men and stuff. And it's been hard for a lot of people to talk about stuff like that. So hopefully he gets the help he needs and has the
especially for men, women.
I remember that. I'm just saying.
You expect your email mailbox to be
I'm just saying it's more accepted for women to talk about their emotions and their mental state.
And he ain't lying.
I know, but he's right. Some people are gonna be like, "Oh, so you're saying women's mental health?" Yeah. I'm just saying, just typically, it's been more accepted for women to speak about these things.
Absolutely.
So but see, that's also the thing too, though. Even if Mars was highlighting men, can we highlight men? There's nothing wrong with that. We're
Right, why
not
not?
exclude. Hey, we still all love our women. We love the
Right.
kids too. We love everybody else. But if we're gonna talk about men right now, because we're talking about Adrian Griffin, let's talk about men. It's nothing wrong with that. Like, we gotta stop being such a toxic culture where if you bring up somebody, if you were to say Derrick Rose is the most athletic point guard in the world, yada yada yada, that doesn't mean that we're not showing Russell Westbrook love. We're just talking about Derrick Rose. Let's talk about men.
And why are we assuming that it's a mental health thing with AJ Griffin? Maybe I just don't want to play basketball no more. How about that? I played basketball for as long as I did, and man, I don't want to do this no more. I'm 21 years old. I was good at it. I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm good. I want to go do something else. We expect these people, football players, basketball players, when they're in it, because a lot of them are basically a reflection of what we would like to do. We expect them to do it for as long as we would want to do it, not realizing that. And it's almost like people feel like they're getting cheated when somebody steps away. When it's in the end, it is a job, and I don't want to do this job anymore. I want to go do something else.
Right. It is a job. His dad was an NBA player. He grew up pretty wealthy. Now he was an NBA player. He still gets his rookie contract guaranteed. And there's some serious stuff that's happened in his life over the last 4 years to anyone who follows it that would break a lot of people, break most people. So the fact that it has, shifted him away from basketball, it should be no one's business at all.
For sure. Well, wishing him the best of luck. Hopefully things can get better before they get worse. And once again, we don't know what he's going through, but just hope that, he can find the resources or the outlets to, bounce back, whether it's whatever the case may be. Praying for you, Adrian Griffin. Gandhi KV2 sent through another super chat. He said, can we see y'all analyze playoff series? Bron versus the Celtics 2018 or any other year. Some 92 Jordan. Prime Steve Nash. 87 Magic.
Just threw Nash in there, right?
Prime Steve Nash
he probably the best player there, if you really think about it.
Prime Steve Nash was nice as hell, yo. Like that probably I'm gonna say like 04 to like 08 Nash. He was awesome. He was awesome.
Jordan awesome.
I mean,
Magic awesome.
He was really better than Jordan if you think about it. But
Bron awesome. Analyze playoff series and Prime Steve Nash. That playoff series, Prime Steve Nash. That those all go together.
No,
did you watch him in 05 against the Mavericks?
Yeah.
Well, then I think that's a pretty valid series to go back and watch. I'm just saying. I mean, like, people seem to act like he wasn't a worthy MVP. Go watch that 05 series against the Mavericks. Might change your opinion.
All right. Well, Gandhi KV2, to answer your question, maybe we'll be on playback. Maybe we won't. You'll just have to see. But the NBA season does tip off October 22nd. So we are counting down the days and very excited for that to happen. We're almost here, ladies and gentlemen. There will be a preseason game in Abu Dhabi on October 4th.
That's next
So
Thursday.
we'll definitely be tapped into that. Yeah. It's the Celtics in, is it the Mavericks? No, it's not the Mavericks.
Denver.
Celtics in Denver. Yeah.
Celtics in Denver. That's next Thursday.
So we're right around the corner. It's almost here. Lee Mack said, chill, did you get a chance to get your top 5 non-all-star point guards? Curious of your list.
I thought about a couple, like Mike Bibby, Derek Harper. I thought those are the guys, and then there's guys. It wasn't guards, it was point guards. Like I said, I thought about Mike Bibby, thought about Derek Harper, guys like that.
You had Jamal Murray on there yesterday, or you mentioned him at least.
I did mention Jamal Murray. Those are the guys that I was thinking about off the top of my head.
Who is the other current point guard?
I mean, Mike Conley just made the All-Star team not too long ago. But
did Rod Strickland ever make an All-Star team?
No, but he made an All-Pro team.
Yes. So that should be the answer for me.
The Al Jefferson way.
Yeah.
All right, there you go, Lee Mack. BT616 said D Rose first playoff game in Boston Sunday morning was insane. He was on fire. He just couldn't miss. The speed for a rookie was memorable.
I was surprised that Derrick
He
Rose.
remembers the day of the week it was. That's kind of crazy.
I was surprised at Derrick Rose's athleticism when he first showed up. I mean, I felt like his game would translate, but athletically, he was a lot better than what I thought he was going to be when he showed up.
Drink more
Whoa,
water.
whoa. Go back to what you just put that back up.
That was a good comment.
What?
Chill. Yeah, Chicago don't play about Derrick Rose.
That's because he's from Chicago.
Yeah, they do not play about Derrick Rose.
I can get with that. I can definitely get with that. Yeah, I can definitely get with that.
He's also just a better player, but that's besides the point.
Mars, you are the epitome of a troll. I swear, everything about you is troll. Ugh.
I guess.
You are a troll. Mm-hmm.
Make Derrick Rose 6'6". I'm just saying.
Well, he's not though, Mars. That's the difference. Let's make Allen Iverson 6'6". He's not.
He's better than Jordan too.
Well, sorry, he's not 6'6". He's not 6'6". No, and even if he was 6'6", no.
All right.
Drink more water. Said Rose layup on Wade and Braun is my favorite moment. That layup was crazy.
My favorite moment was him carrying Julius Randle in the playoffs in 2021. They lost. They lost. But he was the best player in the
Yes,
Knicks.
he was. Julius Randle was terrible in that playoff series.
Garbage. Al Money 231 sent through a members chat of a basketball emoji, fire emoji, and a 100 emoji. Thank you, Al Money.
Very valid message.
BT616 sent through another super chat. He said Coach Tom's coaching style didn't really help Derrick Rose's career as he had a reputation of running players into the ground.
That's where he got the reputation, right? Derrick
I was
Rose.
wondering where that was going to come up.
Him, Luol Deng, Joe Kim. He was
That whole
playing
crew.
a lot of people. Yeah, he was.
Everyone's
playing them a lot.
career was shortened, right? Luol Deng retired before anyone expected him to. He's a really good player. Joakim Noah was out of the league well before his draft cohorts, right? So maybe he ran too many practices. Maybe he ran too many minutes. I don't know.
Joakim Noah was really good. I think he's very underrated.
Incredible.
Yeah.
He's doing some really incredible work right now in Cameroon. His father is from Cameroon. So Yannick Noah.
I used to see him at the games,
What games?
Yeah.
like Bulls games and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like you see him in the crowd and stuff.
Yeah,
Very supportive father.
he's a man of the people. He's giving back to the people now. He's giving back to basketball in Cameroon, which is great.
Speaking of being a man of the people, I want to shout out our 7 Hall of Famers who are, well, the men of the chat. Cobra Son of Raditz. Oh, and women of the chat. I'm sorry. Cobra Son of Raditz, Multi Kenny, Hutton Gilgores, Kendall Daniels, GDHDG, Arch, and last but certainly not least, our newest member, Arch Prime. Shout out to the Hall of Famers. If you guys don't have a membership, get one and be like Arch Prime, the GOAT of Hall of Famers. Lee Mack sent through a super chat too. He said an idea for the panel: create a list of the top 15 players today and a player from 2000 back who compares to them skill, gameplay, etc. wise. Can't use the same past player twice.
There's not going to be a comparison for guys like Steph, but sure, I guess.
You're
Sure
just
there
gonna say
would.
Reggie Miller or Ray Allen.
Mohamed Abdul-Rauf with more usage and less politics.
That's in the 90s though. That's not in the 2000s.
He still
He said
played in
2000. He said 2000s and back. So anything before 2000, I think he was.
2000.
He still
Gilbert
played in
Arenas.
2000.
Did he? I don't remember him after like. I don't remember him.
He
after,
wasn't
like,
playing
98.
big minutes, but he was still in the league in 2000.
Yeah.
Teddy Hart said, yes, his athleticism was his premier ability, but let's not act like he had no skills. He had an all-time floater and a layup package second to only Kyrie. After injuries, he also improved his shooting to over 40% from 3.
He was
Very
one of the
valid
better,
points.
He was one of the better finishers at the rim. 100% he was.
His
Noto
touch was
money
great,
too. Yeah,
but you have to be able to get into the teeth of the defense, and that was kind of
yeah.
not the problem. Like he was still very crafty and stuff. Wasn't the same. But he was
Yeah,
really
no
good
one's
at the rim.
acting like he wasn't a great basketball player. I'm just saying
Right.
like his superstar advantage, which every superstar needs, was his speed.
He had
Didn't
that
have-
behind he had that hesitation behind the back exchange. That was nice.
Right.
Because he could create it. He always was able, especially going right. He had the ability to slam on the brakes and throw the ball behind his back and then burst again and then get into the teeth of the defense. That was pretty impressive from a point guard standpoint. That was pretty impressive. And Mars, you had brought up point guard, not my point guard, small guards who had injuries that's significant and were able to bounce back. I can't think of any. And when I think of guards who had injuries, like Isaiah Thomas, he could have came back in '94 after he tore his Achilles. He could have came back. He still could have played anymore. He just didn't want to play anymore. He said mentally he didn't have it. He said he felt like he had given everything. Chauncey Billups tore his Achilles, but he was old at that point. He was already older. Isaiah Thomas, he had the hip injury. I think that was his problem. I'm thinking about guards who've had significant injuries and were able to bounce back and be. I mean, John Stockton had injuries, but he never like tore his Achilles or tore his ACL.
What about John Wall?
Well, he was done post Achilles,
right? And then that's a guy who had significant skill, great passer.
When did he tear his Achilles? When did that happen?
18? Was it 18?
That was in the middle of him. That was right around him. He was that 20 and 10 guy. Yeah. That was right around there.
It's tough. Like when you're small, it's tough. You have a larger room for error when you're big. It's just the virtue of the game.
I would think that, and see, I think that's where the separator is, Musk, because I thought that it was when you're big, you're more prone to injury.
More prone, yeah, but you're more likely to be able to come back and be effective. If you're a small guard who relies more on your athletic gifts, injuries that take away those athletic gifts are probably going to affect you more than someone whose outlier attribute is their size. Kevin Durant being a 7-footer, no matter how injured he gets, he's going to be 7 feet. Like he's going to be 7 feet. Whereas if KD was 6'1" and torn his Achilles the same way, it's not going to be the same, no matter how skilled he is. Like, I'm not saying he would be bad, but it's just different. So that height is like the great advantage plus disadvantage. You can be Yao Ming and just never be healthy, or you can have more room for error with injuries and still be effective. It just
look at Arvydas Sabonis, right? 14 years, overseas, tons of injuries, busted up. Like, what was the quote when he showed up to Portland? They said, based on his injuries, he could be medically handicapped. That was before he showed up. The doctors in Portland said this guy is basically qualifying for a handicap parking spot. And he went out and he was one of the 5 best centers in the NBA for like 5-6 years. And that's my point. That's 7'3". He could not have done that at 6'3". Impossible. So, it's a catch-22, right? But if you happen to be one of the rare 6'10" to 7-foot guys who managed to stave off injuries, now you're in the golden space because now you can age gracefully.
Greatest with the super chat. Greatest said Rose ran home when he got benched. Not mentally tough.
He's talking about when he was with the Knicks and there was a no call, no show. Like he didn't call nobody, he didn't say anything, he just didn't show up. I do remember that.
He's been speaking negatively about Derrick Rose the whole time in the chat. I just been reading it.
Drink More Water has been a member for 19 months. You guys know this name. You know his game. And he sent through a members chat. He said Brandon Jennings tore his Achilles in Detroit in 2015 and never was the same. A guard that relied on speed like Rose never regained his former form. I think Jennings was 25 when he got hurt as well.
Something like that.
Miguel was another one who was never the same after injuries.
Who?
Gilbert Arenas.
What was his injury? It's a knee injury?
I believe it was his knee. I believe. I might be wrong. But I was also after the other stuff too. So I don't know if you want to attribute that to that. But injuries very much slowed him down. So.
Yeah, you got to be lucky, very lucky to go through a 82 game season. Let you be good enough to make the playoffs and go through deep postseason runs and just not get injured or have to go through a serious injury. It's just rare.
Yeah.
And then even to go through that and then bounce back to even be, the same level of guy that you was, it's very few people can do that. DeSarmo said Ox was right. People are virtue signaling. He admitted he didn't know what consent was. Everyone got energy for number 32, but praised Kobe, D. Rose, Ronaldo, etc.
Wait, what? One more time.
He's talking about the charges that were on Derrick Rose and then also Kobe and Cristiano Ronaldo, and how the only one who seems to get like the brunt of that energy is number 32.
Okay, what number 32 did ain't even close to the same thing than what everybody else. So let's kill that right now.
I'm not.
Let's dead that right now. We can start and stop the conversation with what Malone did and what Derrick Rose did and what Kobe did and what Ronaldo allegedly did. We can kill that all right now. So as far as what Derrick Rose did, I mean, I can't comment on it because I'm straight.
Styles Blackman said this is stupid. If KD at 22, when he was still developing, had 3 back-to-back devastating injuries, is he the same KD we know now? I highly doubt it.
Yes.
Yeah,
his work ethic would still be the same. He'd still be 7 feet. He'd still be a lights out shooter. He'd still be an incredible, he'd still have that incredible footwork. He would still be great. He would still be a really great player. People just don't understand how good Kevin Durant was to begin with. He has inches to lose.
Mars, you can't.
He'd be great. I just don't know if he'd be the same that we know.
I don't know, Mars. You just told me about how the advantage of being taller, how much that helps. And KD actually when he was older, tore up his Achilles, actually came back, still super sharp. He had the hamstring injury, but he was still super sharp. So now let's rewind the clock back 7, 8, 9 years where KD is 22 years old and he tears that Achilles. Or he has another knee injury. Can KD still be as super sharp as he was? To be honest with you, if I'm seeing KD come off an Achilles injury and he's still arguably the best player in the world after coming off that, after being injured and being older, why is it ridiculous for me to believe that KD at 22 years old in like 2000, I don't know, let's say 2010, I'm thinking?
Ish around there, 10, 11-ish around
2010. There. If he had an Achilles injury, missed the season, and then came back, why is it ridiculous for me to think that physically he can't come back as opposed to mentally? Physically, there's no reason for me to think that.
I guess I agree he'd still be great. I think Kevin Durant is just too skilled, too talented, 7 feet, all of that. I think he'd be great, but I think it wouldn't be the same, is what I'm saying. Like, there's like timelines to Kevin Durant's career. You got the young KD where the skill wasn't fully refined, but the talent was there. And you could see the things he could do, but the jump shot wasn't fully polished. Still struggled with certain aspects of his game, could get knocked off his spots, all of those. But he was like, the talent was there. Then you get like 2011 to like 14 KD, which is like the athleticism is peaking, the skill is there, the mid-range, the three, getting to the rim, transition, it's all there. Then he fractures his foot. And he comes back in 16, 17, 18, 19. And KD is still great, but you can see he's not as athletic and as fluid as he was before he fractured his foot. But he was still great. The jump shot was even more refined. The back to the basket game was there, much more effective with fewer dribbles, all of that. But you could see he didn't move the same as he did before the fractured foot. Then you got torn Achilles KD, where practically all the explosion and the athleticism has now disappeared for the most part. But the jump shot is even better than it's ever been. He plays off the ball better than maybe he's ever been in terms of shooting. Defensively, he seems to be at a higher level than he used to be when he was at his peak athleticism, in part because the game's changed and he's playing up a position defensively, all of those things. But like that's like 3 timelines of KD, his game being different. Even though you could argue he's still one of the best players in the world, you watch this KD and you watch 2014 KD, for example. Chill knows I was just watching 2014 KD like 3 days ago. It's drastically different. No matter how great he is, it's different in the way he's doing it, which is why I say I don't know if he'd be the same, but he would still be great. I think KD was going to be great no matter what. That talent was just something you can't. He's one of the most talented players I've ever seen, but it gets diminished for some reason. I don't know why, but he's crazy.
Kai Martinez sent through an empty super chat and then followed it up saying D Rose interview when he gets traded, so sad.
Is that when he got the call, like mid-interview? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Smoke Bryant became a member. Shout out to Smoke Bryant and shout out to everybody else that has been a member or is going to become a member. But a big shout out and specifically to Smoke Bryant. Salute to you. Appreciate you for coming through. Greatest sent through another super chat. He said, explain his no call, no show on the Knicks. Rose a baby.
That was headline news. I remember that. He just didn't show up. Nobody said anything. It was a big deal. Yeah, it was a big deal.
All right, fellas, we're gonna go ahead and transition into some interesting things that were said by Vlade Divac. He said, quote unquote, time will tell whether drafting Marvin Bagley over Luka Dončić was the wrong choice. He said, I already had De'Aaron Fox. Time will tell if I was wrong. As things stand now, it seems I was, but I still have faith in Fox having a great career. Thoughts on this?
I'm embarrassed.
I don't see the problem.
It's my countrymen. I'm so embarrassed.
Why is it? Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Penn. Okay, when you build in a unit, right? When you're building a unit, the first thing you do is you get a guy. Once you get a guy, you point out that this is my guy, and I'm building my unit around this guy. When he drafted De'Aaron Fox, who at the time was arguably the best point guard in the country, it was him and Lonzo Ball. It was those two guys.
Hang on,
it was Markel and then Lonzo and
game.
De'Aaron.
Yeah, break.
College game.
It was Markel and then Lonzo and De'Aaron.
So when Vlade Divac takes De'Aaron Fox, he recognizes, okay, I got my guy. I'm building my unit around him. I already have my guy. This is the difference. What I'm talking about, Penn, when you're talking about, this is the difference. What I'm talking about, we're talking about better fit as opposed to better player. Which one works? Because
what are we talking about, Chill? These two players can play together.
Can they, though?
Playing with Kyrie right now. They just went to the finals. Kyrie, what are we talking about? Why are we acting like
this is the point right here. This is what I'm talking about, because this is hindsight. This is 2020. This is who Luka turned into.
He always been this player. How did he radically change his game? He still doesn't play a lick of defense, and he's still a small forward who's 6'6". It's not like you're pairing two undersized guards. Luka could be a forward. Luka's always been a forward, guard forward. He plays all over the court. This idea that these guys couldn't play together is the stupidest revisionist history ever. This is a guy trying to justify, well, I gave you Fox, so back off. Cheat sheet. Most NBA fans right now, if polled, and I'm not necessarily saying they're right or wrong, would put Luka in a different class of player than De'Aaron Fox, and they are right. And they might even put Tyrese Halliburton above Fox. And let me tell you something.
Yes, they might.
They might. Yeah. And let me tell you something. The Kings moved off of Tyrese Halliburton largely because that was the cost to get. They didn't think that there was a future for those two players together. They thought maybe 2 point guards, two guys who needed the basketball, it wasn't going to work. Well, there's a chance. I mean, the debate is raging that they got rid of the better player. They definitely made the mistake on Luka. Big time. First of all, Luka could actually play with De'Aaron Fox. Number one. Number two, Luka's 2 years younger than De'Aaron Fox. I mean, generously 1.5 years younger than him. And he's already lapped his career 4 times. I think to most people, he would be like, I would take, this is going to sound like I'm hating, and Sacramento's going to come at me. I would take 1 Luka over 4 De'Aaron Foxes.
4. Keep going, Penn.
Not going that far.
Well, yeah,
3?
I don't need 4 De'Aaron.
What's the exchange rate? This is like the, what's the exchange rate? It's like Costa Rican money. What is the exchange rate? How many De'Aaron Foxes Like, why are we talking about these two players like they're comparable? They're not comparable. They're not comparable players. You're not talking about, oh, well, we had Giannis, so we
But that's the
passed on
point, though,
Luka.
Penn. I'm not saying that these two guys are comparable as players today. I'm not saying that.
They
What I
never
am
were,
saying-
but
right. But here's the thing that I'm saying. I'm saying that when De'Aaron Fox showed up, Vlade Divac saw what he had in Fox, and I'm building my unit around this guy. So when Marvin Bagley comes out, okay, I'm going to get him a big guy to play off of him. Not a small forward. I'm going to get a big guy to play off of him, and this is how I'm building my unit. I can't just the whole best player. So why didn't Cleveland take Damian Lillard the next year? They already had Kyrie Irving. Why not take Damian Lillard the next year? The reason why you don't take Damian Lillard is because I already got my lead guard in Kyrie Irving. This is who I'm building my unit around. Now, do I know what Damian Lillard is going to turn into? I don't know that. Just like I don't know what Luka is going to turn into.
You're being paid millions of dollars to know what they're going to turn into.
No,
but Cleveland did take a guard. Was it Dion Waiters they took in 2012?
I think so. Yeah,
they took a guard. But like, let's remember, De'Aaron Fox is a rookie because Luka got drafted the year after De'Aaron's rookie
in
year.
18,
and he wasn't that
De'Aaron Fox was one of the worst players in the league his rookie year.
Yep.
Bingo.
I think he averaged 12 a game, something like that.
He was not even the story.
No, he
his
was
efficiency,
bad.
his defense, he was terrible.
He was horribly inefficient. He couldn't shoot. His defense was horrible. He was too weak. He couldn't get by people with the same regularity he had at Kentucky. He was bad. And he became great. Like, De'Aaron Fox was really good. But at the time, when maybe they didn't do their scouting, we heard the rumors about like Vlade didn't like Luka's family, someone in his family or something like that. So that I'm certain that played a part in it. Luka was a generational prospect. I don't like if you didn't watch, that's on you, but Luka was a generational prospect. Passing on him for family reasons and also because you had
that's a fireable offense. That's a fireable
because
offense.
you had De'Aaron Fox, who was one of the worst players in the league, is crazy. That's like to me, like not to like throw Scoot Henderson under the bus, right? But that's like if Portland, there was a generational point guard in this past draft, and Portland said, we didn't want him because we had Scoot Henderson, who just came off one of the worst rookie years for a top 3 pick we've seen in a while. Like, that's not a justification to me. Even if you believe in De'Aaron Fox's ceiling, when there's a generational prospect, you don't pass on that because of a guard who you believe has potential who just had a horrible year. You don't do that. But I will say, the time will tell part. I mean, if Sacramento...
That's the reason why you pass, Mars.
If Sacramento go on to win 5 chips and Dallas never win, I guess Vlade could be like, I mean, technically...
Well, let me ask you this question, Mars.
I guess why say that.
Well, so why are we going that far over the deep end to say that he had to win 5 championships? The way that, like you just said, the way that De'Aaron Fox played as a rookie, he got significantly better the next year. See, I think he finished 3rd in most improved, and then after that then he got significantly better after that.
Who was better?
And then he got significantly better after that.
First year Luka, who was better?
We already know who's better.
So what are we talking about?
What we're talking about is we're talking about building a unit, and he built that unit around De'Aaron Fox, who got significantly better as time went on. I put down who my lead guard is, and this is who he was, De'Aaron Fox. I'm building my unit around him. This is the guy that I'm going to take number 1 over. I'm going to take number 1 as my first round prospect. I'm going to build my unit around him, just like Dallas. They ended up trading for Luka. We're going to build our unit around him. Now, were there better players?
Next to Dennis Smith, to be fair, as a rookie. So
this doesn't make sense, Chill, because one, these players are not comparable. They weren't comparable as prospects either. I don't want to buy that shit either because Luka went higher in a better draft, number 1. And number 2, he's the youngest early
pick higher.
No,
De'Aaron
2 picks
right?
higher.
De'Aaron was 5.
He went 1 pick higher.
2 picks higher.
Luka was 3. De'Aaron was 5. So
and then they got swapped.
And
because Atlanta wanted that guy. Give me a break. Okay, keep going. I'm sorry.
I don't buy number 1. Luka as a prospect, like what Mars said about Scoot. Scoot as a prospect was a much higher rated prospect, in my opinion, than De'Aaron Fox.
Yes,
I remember the De'Aaron Fox hype. It was nothing compared to the Scoot Henderson hype. Okay, so if right now Portland wants to pass on a point guard, and that point guard isn't Luka Dončić, I'll understand that. I get it. You want to show the young player faith. But at that point, number 1, this only makes sense if you passed on a guard in order to, avoid a log jam like Monte Ellis and Steph Curry. And you should never draft for need that high in the draft, ever. I would argue you should never draft for need, period. But at least in the top 12, you should never draft for need. Also does not negate the fact that they literally drafted Tyrese Halliburton, who is a smaller version and a way worse version of Luka Dončić like 2 years later. So what are we talking about here? Like, we're acting like these two players can't play together, and that's just false. We're acting like Luka and Fox, even at that point, were comparable prospects, which they were not. This is a person who made possibly one of the biggest draft day blunders in history, and no one can understand it because honestly, the front offices that passed on Luka should have understood Luka better than anybody. They should have. Phoenix had his coach. They should have understood. Vlade knew his father from way back when, and there's this old, thing in Serbian culture where the sun, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I guess it's true in all cultures. And maybe he didn't like his dad, and maybe that colored his idea, and maybe now he's still preying on a Marvin Bagley resurgence, and he'll be like, "Oh, I'll be proven right when Marvin Bagley makes an All-Star team." Don't hold your breath, Vlade Divac. Because Marvin Bagley is going to be in China before he makes an All-Star team.
Hey, you guys keep bringing up De'Aaron Fox. To me, this has nothing to do with De'Aaron. Well, it does have something to do with De'Aaron Fox, but it's more so. It's more predicated on Marvin Bagley. He said in the quote, he said, "Time will tell whether drafting Marvin Bagley over Luka was the wrong choice."
Time told.
It's not that I'm saying.
Well,
that
Marvin's not even on the team
choice.
anymore. Yeah, Marvin's not even on the team anymore.
So that's what I'm saying. You made the wrong choice.
Made a mistake preseason, game 1 preseason, first year. That's when we knew Vlade made a mistake, and I think it was pretty much cemented by like the 10th game of the year that this was a fireable offense. We don't need to wait. That was 2018, 2019, right? Am I right? That was
2018, the 18-19
2018.
season.
So
18-19
that
draft.
we're 6 years removed from we found out. Like, why is this quote coming out now? This is crazy. I honestly, when I read this quote, I'm like, is this a quote from like 2018 midseason? Like, that's the last time you could even debate this and be like, oh, well, Marvin Bagley.
Penn, they may have drafted the wrong guy. But they may have drafted the wrong guy. Sure. Okay.
Chill, I need you to correct.
They absolutely did.
Yes.
Can we stop talking about this? Like, this is like
this is what I'm asking though. This is what I'm asking. Is it better at the time to draft better player or better fit? Because again, no, it's not always that. That's not always the case.
When the player's generational, I'm sorry, you don't
draft the generational talent. Okay, Mars, I won't argue that. But if I have my franchise player, which is clear that's how Vlade Divac felt about De'Aaron Fox. He felt that was his franchise player. I don't need Luka Dončić at that time, even though Luka is, I think, 18, 19 years old. I don't need him. I'm going to build my unit around this guy right here. Right here. If you're
also,
talking about
it wasn't cut and dry that Luka was generational too.
No, anyone who watched Luka knew he was generational. It's you Americans who never watched him. Not you, Rob.
Well, I mean, so that's what I'm saying. So over here, it wasn't cut and dry.
The scouting department should have a brain. The scouting department is their job to watch these guys. So anyone in the front offices should have known he was generational. It's not up to the fans, the casual fans who don't watch the EuroLeague. They respectfully, their opinion doesn't matter. Whether they think he's generational or they think Europeans are soft, I don't care. But the scouting departments who watch Luka, who scout Luka, who go to his games, if they thought anything other than generational, they should be fired. Respectfully.
Well, that's the thing though, Mars. It was 4 franchises that didn't think so.
Hang on.
The 4 picks, the 4 teams that
he went number
Atlanta technically. And I mean, with that being said, too, the Memphis Grizzlies could have traded up as well. So I'm saying that's why I'm throwing them in there. Like it was 4 franchises that potentially had action in Luka, and none of them thought that he was generational. So that's why I'm saying it's not that cut and dry. Like Mars, obviously, hindsight 2020. Yes, you can say that.
Well,
at that moment in time.
This at the time, but
well, I remember at the moment in time. Like it wasn't like
we just watch his EuroLeague games and tell me you don't see it. I know the benefit of hindsight and all that stuff.
Yes, it is because, but I'm saying like you're
seeing. Are you just going off of his game? Is that what you're going off of? Is it the fact that he was the EuroLeague MVP? Because we've seen the EuroLeague MVP come into the NBA and it didn't work out very well. So I don't think we can use that.
It matters how. It matters when. Okay, the people look. There's a lot of ignorance. Okay, here in North America about what Europe is like. You know, we see players go over there and, you know, like Patrick Beverley and stuff like that, and they get hyped and they're like, oh, that's probably a trash league. 17 years old playing against grown men and winning the MVP, that has to be given appropriate weight. It's not done. It shouldn't ever be done. It feels logically impossible. He was a better European player than Wemby was. And Wemby was unquestionably. So let's talk about why he didn't go number one. Number one, it comes from a small country. Okay. It's not like France. It's not like Italy. It's a small country. Slovenia is a small country. And when you're a franchise that is drafting the top 5, typically it's because you're drafting there for a reason, because you're shit, because you're bad and you're bad at running organizations. That's why you're drafting top 5. And chances are you're looking for a franchise cornerstone. You're looking for someone that can sell your franchise. And a guy who jumps high, a guy who's American, is going to be easier to sell than some chubby European. Okay. That's the first thing. Second, we need to examine the bias when it comes to athleticism. We don't appropriately weigh how much balance, coordination, hand-eye coordination go into success on the basketball court. We think about bench press. We think about vertical jump. We think about sprints. Luka didn't do too well in those things.
Right.
And if your eye test is looking for that, a James Wiseman type, you're going to draft Marvin Bagley 10 times out of 10 because your eye test is going to say he's going to be better than this guy. How can I take the chubby white guy with the slow feet? But it's like, bro, you don't see where those feet are. You don't see him doing this against 17. He's not doing this against 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds in high school. He's doing this against the second best competition in the world. And he just won MVP there. If any GM passed on Luka Dončić, they deserve to be fired.
Now remember, Pam,
and they both have.
100% they have. Yes, they have. Now remember what the tag was, especially not just at that time, but previous to that, what the Euro was. The Euro is soft. The Euro doesn't play defense.
That's bias.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. And then on top of that, in the Euro League, as busy as he was getting, it still was scoffed upon. That doesn't mean that Luka wasn't nice. That doesn't mean that at all. But what it does mean is this guy that's playing in America, this guy that is 19 years old, playing in college, looks fantastic, has a great upside. He's local. We can have him on our roster, as opposed to this 17-year-old from Europe with the soft tag. Not very skilled.
Luka was not considered soft by anyone who watched
scouting
him.
Departments are thinking that.
100%. They have to do their homework.
The casual fans thinking the European players are soft, whatever. Like, cool, good for them. Scouting departments should not be buying into these ideologies.
They shouldn't be
based on nothing but nonsense. Like, they shouldn't have gone into it like, well, he's European, so there's a question on where. Like, if they're thinking that, then they should be fired. That's a disgrace.
Also, what you guys are failing to realize, though, is DeAndre Jordan up to this point was a my bad. DeAndre Ayton. My apologies, y'all. DeAndre Ayton up to this point was considered a generational prospect.
No, he wasn't.
Marvin Bagley up until this point,
he was one of the best.
DeAndre Ayton was
but he wasn't
very high level.
He wasn't generational.
Okay, maybe not generational. But
I did love him though. I did. I did.
I've seen the David Robinson comparison.
He was consensus though. Consensus number one from freshman year of high school all the way up. Nobody was touching Ayton. Marvin Bagley was considered very highly in terms of his tools and his physical attributes. Marvin Bagley was not. Marvin Bagley was supposed to be him. Like we're looking at him in a hindsight lens. At that moment in time, Marvin Bagley was a for sure shot. So I'm saying, like, I'm not necessarily knocking Luka, but I do want to acknowledge how good of prospects these two guys were.
Yeah, Pen, you sitting there talking.
They weren't Luka. But wow.
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
I think that what we're looking at here is we're looking at it in hindsight. Marvin Bagley coming out of college. I mean, Luka was not a can't miss. He wasn't. He unfortunately, even with the talent that he had, he was not a can't miss. Now, this is clearly front offices not doing their homework, and not only not doing their homework, maybe they are doing their homework. They just don't trust it enough. Going, do I really want to invest in the Euro? It's more acceptable today, considering where the league
that
is. With
mentality right there is why North American front offices pass on Jokic and Luka.
Right, and it's more acceptable today. 100% it is.
Chill. This is a problem, man. This is a bias that has to be examined. All European players. Europe's a huge place. I'm sorry that the education system in North America doesn't always teach that, but Europe is a really big place. There are countries like Italy that have a population, I believe, of 90 million. And I'm pretty sure if you ask the average American what's the population of Italy, they'd be like, I don't know, they got 10, 12 million, 20 million people. People assume that Europe is small. It is huge. And it is very diverse. It is very different to come from Greece. It's very different to come to Italy. And yes, believe it or not, these are two different countries. And it's completely different to come from a war-torn country like ex-Yugoslavia, Slovenia, Serbia, Croatia. These players have gone through hell, man. Their parents and families have gone through hell in terms of wars and the types of struggle that these kids have faced coming up. Is nothing soft about them. Branding an entire fucking continent of people as soft because one guy you watched once, like, can we call all Australian players soft because of what happened with Ben Simmons? Can we call all Americans soft because of what happened with Zion? How many American players have been soft? For real? How many?
Plenty,
right? Plenty.
Yes.
And how many European players have been tough as nails? Plenty. Like, I don't consider Tony Parker soft as hell.
I don't think Marciulionis is soft.
Bingo.
I don't think Tony Kukoc is soft. No,
I don't think Domantas Sabonis is soft. I don't think Arvydas Sabonis is soft. I don't think any of these guys are soft. Maybe they're one or two guys, but it's living up to a stereotype.
Right.
And unfortunately, the stereotypes exist across spectrums. There are stereotypes about African players that their ages are sometimes faked. We've heard that rumor about Dikembe Mutombo. We heard that about Serge Ibaka, and that causes African players to drop in the draft every single year, especially when they come from countries that are not well established politically, right? This is a bias. So if you're going to hold bias in your heart and you're going to hold bias in your scouting department about what athleticism is, or if a white European is predisposed to being soft, well, then you deserve to take the L. You deserve to watch Luka Dončić win multiple MVPs, win a championship, become one of the greatest players of all time, while you hold out hope that Marvin Bagley might still make a comeback.
I don't think anybody's still on the Marvin Bagley train. I mean, like Divac said, it looks bad. Yes. 100%.
I'm on the train. There's a resurgence in Washington. Come on, man.
It does look like they made the wrong decision, and he's right. However, I do understand from a fit perspective. I understand how he was trying to build his unit. I already got my lead guard. Now I'm gonna build it around him, because if I'm doing that, then we have to run down all the teams who end up passing on great players to build their unit. And their unit ended up being a success because the fit was better.
Mm-hmm.
The fit was just better. It doesn't mean that I always reference what the Detroit Pistons did, how they built that unit around Isaiah Thomas when they got Bill Laimbeer, and they already had Vinnie Johnson, and then they drafted Joe Dumars, then they drafted John Sally, then they drafted Dennis Rodman. How they built that unit around, and they traded for Adrian Dantley. Adrian Dantley was a better player than Mark Aguirre. But getting Mark Aguirre on the crew, he fit better with what they were doing. Now, with him fitting better with what they were doing, they ended up winning the NBA championship. That works. Was Adrian Dantley better than Mark Aguirre? Yes. A better player does not always mean better fit. And better fit wins NBA championships. I watched the Cleveland Cavaliers draft Kyrie Irving. If they take Damian Lillard the next year, what does this Cav team look like with Kyrie Irving, who's trying to prove himself as the lead guard of the future? Did you get James? Probably not.
Okay, I'll see your situation. I'll raise your situation. The Warriors drafted Steph Curry onto a team that already had Monta Ellis. It was apparent when they drafted him that these two were going to be a very suboptimal fit.
Yeah,
and Monta Ellis was against this, and there was those pretty much in the organization that were for trading Steph Curry and not drafting him in the first place. There was a lot of organizational divide, and Lord knows the fans were conclusive on this. Save Monta, trade this bum Steph Curry.
Right.
But you drafted the best player, and you waited through his injuries, and he became one of the 10 greatest players of all time. My
100%.
point is, this high in the draft, you do not make you do not choose like that. Like, even look at the Kings. They did draft Tyrese Halliburton, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
And then they traded him a year and a half later for an All-NBA center, which would not have happened had they not drafted Tyrese Halliburton, because no one would have paid that for the next guy. I don't even know who's the next guy picked after Tyrese Halliburton. My point is, you pick talent. You're in the talent accumulation game, okay? And if that talent has to sit and develop in your G League for a bit because you don't have a spot for him, that's fine.
Sure.
I'll respect the Portland Trailblazers picking Jermaine O'Neal, even though they were stacked in the front court.
Right.
I'll respect that. You know,
Now-
I respect the Raptors picking Vince Carter, even though they had Tracy McGrady. I respect that. And, you know, that's how you got to do it. You got to pick talent. You cannot pick fit. And
Sure.
every time a GM has picked fit, I mean, almost every single time, they have regretted it, especially at the top of the draft.
This is what I'm trying to say, though, Penn. Marvin Bagley was an immense talent at that moment in time.
Yeah, he was
Marvin Bagley was not just scrub. It's a reason he went number 2.
But
And he was consensus number 2. Marvin Bagley was not no scrub. And another thing I want to say too, y'all better be lucky Michael Porter Jr. ain't hurt his back, because Luka might not have went 3rd.
Now,
Going into that draft, Luka was not a consensus
Hang
up
on.
here. Like, obviously
Michael
he was a
Porter
top
Jr.
5
might have
talent,
gone
but he
number
was
1. So that really
Yeah,
shatters
exactly.
your whole DeAndre Ayton was generational. You're revising
well,
history
two
right now.
generational players can be in the same
No,
draft.
that's literally
No, because if I remember
what the hell
correctly,
is generational? to you, Ron?
Marvin Bagley
Can't be a generational player in
and
every draft.
Marvin Bagley and MPJ were both ranked higher than DeAndre Ayton going into.
They were.
Yeah, so
Michael Porter
David.
Jr. was supposed to be coming out of high school. Michael Porter Jr. was the number 1 prospect in the nation.
Yes, he
Right,
was.
he was
so-
supposed to
And
go
I'll
number
tell
1.
you right now that coming out of high school, RJ Barrett was a higher ranked player than
Zion.
DeAndre Ayton and Zion.
Mhm.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, like high school, we're not generational here. Generational is Shaq, Wemby,
LeBron.
That's generational.
I mean, you
Beyond
don't know if
that,
they're
you're
generational
really
until they're
stretching.
drafted, though. Like, we can throw the generational tag on them. We don't know.
You can see a generational prospect. Whether or
And
not
I'll
they
tell you
reach
something.
it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though.
he went
Looking at
first or
Luka,
not, Luka
you
is
couldn't
in that
just see that
conversation
Luka
with
was
those guys.
generational. I know we want to go back and say that because he is generational, but you couldn't just see. I remember it like it clear as day. There were question marks around Luka and Penn. A lot of the things that you said about Europeans, you're right. But also too, up until that point, we had not yet seen a European that moves like Luka or moves like Jokic come over here and dominate. We just had it. We had it. So the ones that had, like you could say, Arvydas Sabonis or guys of that nature, they still had some athleticism to them. Like
What are
we had
talking about?
not.
Hold on. This is the problem, Ron. You just said some athleticism. Are you trying to tell me Luka Dončić is not athletic?
Not athletic in your conventional ways.
But Luka at Real Madrid, like,
Because
I think
you find me an athlete who can run fast but can't stop fast.
Luka wasn't fat at Real Madrid,
But he still wasn't. He still did not just pass athleticism tests with flying colors. That's what I'm saying.
Because
he
he
wasn't
was
Derrick
balanced,
Rose.
he was coordinated, he was strong, and he was huge.
I understand.
How
I
is that
said
not a part of athleticism?
conventional athleticism in how
that
we
is
usually see in
conventional.
number
What
1
does high
overall
jump
pick.
have to do with basketball?
Running. Yes,
fast jump high, that's what
he lacked explosion in
So did Paul
getting
Pierce.
off the ground. Him
did Paul
and
Pierce.
Jokic. Yeah, and well, not necessarily.
I want to get back to. I want to get back to
Paul
what
Pierce
I'm
coming
gonna-
out of Kansas was an athlete.
He was not an
He might not have been Vince Carter, but he was
He
more
wasn't
athletic
even
than
Eddie
Luka.
Jones. No,
Do you know who Eddie Jones was? What?
He wasn't even
Pen-
Eddie Jones.
Two
Pen,
people are Eddie Jones.
I want to get back on the point that you made when you talked about Steph Curry. I want to stay here with what you guys are talking about, but I want to get back to the point that you made when we talk about revisionist history. Monte Ellis at that time was a 25, 26 a game guy, him running with Steph Curry, right? So they draft Klay Thompson, who wasn't as good as Monte Ellis. And they had the foresight to go, this is the guy that we're moving. This is the guy that we're going with. And this is the backcourt of the future. This is who we're moving with. This fits better than Monte Ellis. Because Monte Ellis at that time, you can't sit there and tell me in 2011 was not a better player than Klay Thompson, who they had just drafted. Klay Thompson was not a better player in 2011 when he just showed up than Monte Ellis. He wasn't. So what they do is they draft Klay Thompson and they look at him and they look at Steph and they go, this is the backcourt of the future. This fits better. This is going to work. And they move off of Monte Ellis moving forward. And what ends up happening? They're the best backcourt in NBA history because it fits better. Not because we have the better player, because the better player was clearly at that time Monte Ellis. But it turned into being both Klay Thompson and Steph Curry.
But if they used your logic, they wouldn't have drafted either one of those guys because they already had Monte Ellis.
But here's the difference. No. They drafted Steph Curry. They drafted Steph Curry off the strength of who he was. Right? They drafted Steph Curry off the strength.
Player available.
Right. They drafted Steph Curry off of who he was. But then they see Klay running with they see Clay. I'm sorry, they see Monte Ellis running with Steph and go, this doesn't work. So maybe the best player in terms of talent, maybe this doesn't work. Maybe we need to get a better fit. You get Klay Thompson, who isn't the talent at that time, and who isn't the player at that time that Monte Ellis is, but this fits better because I see what the future is going to look like.
The Warriors just got lucky. They tried to trade
you got to look at market inefficiencies.
They didn't do this because it's like, oh, we see Steph and Clay. No, they tried to get off Steph. That's what they tried to do. So they would have
luck is always a part of it, though,
yeah, they would have had
They almost traded Clay.
They tried
for
to trade
Kevin
Clay for Kevin Love. So like the Warriors just got lucky that these trades didn't go through. It's not like they had the foresight to imagine, oh, this backcourt are going to do something. No, the Bucks just said, no, we don't really want Steph. And the Timberwolves just didn't do the Kevin Love trade. They tried to get off both of them. So they got lucky.
As an organization, you have to have an assertion of values, okay? And this is where I draw the line on the Marvin Bagley thing. There were question marks around Marvin Bagley. They weren't on-court question marks, but there were a lot of off-court question marks. And I'm not really about to go into a whole spiel about it, but to those who know, they know. Things around him, people around him. And so you ask yourself the question, are you doing your due diligence? I know that when a player is drafted to your organization, some organizations go really deep into the weeds. They want to have conversations with your parents. They want to have conversations, with your head trainer. They want to have a conversation with your high school coach, your high school teachers. Sure. They want to weed out everything you've ever done. They want to get your worst moment, how you reacted to it. That's due diligence. And by the way, they've known you since you were in grade 6, grade 7 anyway. If they're doing if they've been doing their work early, they've seen the whole chart. They have everything about you. They have all your injuries. They have all your movement. They've been tracking your movement the whole way through. That's scouting. That's scouting. Number one. So when you have that level of insight into a player, you have a better record of tracking them out. And then it just comes down to, what do you value as an organization?
Right.
Do you value a guy who jumps high? Or do you value a guy who stops better? Do you value a guy who runs faster, or a guy who is just more on balance? These are core principles that an organization has to decide for themselves as a scouting philosophy. What do I care about? Some organizations just won't draft guys who don't test well analytically. Some organizations won't draft guys who have small hands. Some organizations won't draft guys who have suboptimal wingspans, because they have a particular philosophy of what creates success on a basketball court, right? It's the same thing with shooters. Some organizations, they don't want to draft non-shooters. Some organizations, they're like, give us all the non-shooters, because that's a market inefficiency. There are some organizations that go specifically for blue bloods, a lot of blue bloods. And chances are, if your team has been going for blue bloods,
and why do they do that?
Michael Jordan runs your team.
Okay, why do they do that? Like you just mentioned, some teams go for this specific player. Some teams go for this specific player.
Joe.
Not just safety, because it fits better. This works for us. And to Mars's point, like, they got lucky. Sure, they got lucky, but they still had the foresight to go, this is going to work, even though they tried to get off of Steph Curry. Yes, they did. 100%.
The Warriors
100% they tried to get off Steph Curry. Just like the Houston Rockets tried to get off of Robert Horry. They tried to get off of Robert Horry. It came back and it didn't work. But you know what? This is going to work. It's not like the next day. It's not like the next day they said that. They still had to see what Klay Thompson looked like before they traded Monte Ellis. It wasn't like they traded Monte Ellis the next day. Klay was already on the crew, and they did see what it looked like. And what it looked like was, this is the backcourt of our future. Maybe we might be making a mistake moving off of Steph Curry. Getting lucky is part of it, Mars, but don't act like the foresight isn't there. It's not just we got lucky. No, that doesn't work.
I think you're overcomplicating it, Chill. Like, there's no crystal ball that says this is the backcourt of the future, because you didn't have any assurances that Steph Curry wouldn't keep getting injured. You didn't have any assurances that Klay Thompson would ever get his crazy shot selection.
That was just that one season we played 26 games. He was playing. He was on the floor.
But you don't know if he's ever going to be durable. He's had a slew of injuries. You don't know if he's going to be durable. He's skinny as hell. He bulked up a little bit later. But there was nobody. I don't buy it that somebody's going to tell me they knew Steph Curry was going to be this.
No,
nobody did. And frankly, I didn't. And I don't think most people did. And if they did, he wouldn't have gone 7th in the draft. There's no chance in hell he goes 7th in the draft if people knew he was going to become this player. He'd go number 1 every time. So what I'm saying is, sometimes you have to be good, sometimes you have to be lucky, but it does come down to an organizational approach to what do you value. And some organizations value size. They say, okay, all things equal, one player is 6'6", one player is 6'10", I pick 6'10". If everything else is equal, I'm picking 6'10" every time. Some people, it's like, I value youth. I'm going to pick the younger player every time. So I'm going to choose the guy born in 96 over the guy born in 95. And that's just, these are assertion of values. And you decide, every general manager, every scouting department decides for themselves, what do you value? And if you're lucky, you value the right things. And that's the approach. That's everything. That's data. That's scouting. That's why NBA front offices pay millions and millions of dollars. Look at the OKC Thunder. The OKC Thunder are the best example of drafting well, in my opinion, in the league. The OKC Thunder, the Houston Rockets, who else? The New Orleans Pelicans. These are the three teams that are just accumulating talent.
Shout out to Spurs too.
Sometimes.
What do you mean sometimes?
No. Hold on. You're gonna muddy the water by including
Spurs don't have a history
because
of
the Spurs have not
drafting
drafted
great.
as well.
Are you guys out of your? Why are we about to do this right now? We're on a good topic, and you guys want to jump off the rails?
Drafted Tony Parker.
You're gonna
Yes.
Tony Parker and Manu. Yes.
You draft
Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and Wemby were all just logical picks.
Kawhi? So now we just don't forget Kawhi.
Kawhi, they
That's a
did
long time ago.
Indiana drafted him. Indiana
And they
drafted him.
traded for him.
Okay, they traded for him.
They traded him. They ain't drafted him.
If we're
But they
talking-
traded for him. Did they trade for him draft night?
Devin
Yes, they
Vassell.
Then they drafted the boy.
No, but
No,
Devin
they
Vassell
didn't.
probably wasn't.
So the Hawks didn't draft Luka. So now we're saying that. So now we're no. But so the Mavericks didn't draft Luka. Is that what we're saying now?
They didn't. No, they didn't. They
Did they
traded for him.
acquire him on draft night?
Okay, they traded for him.
So they
didn't
drafted
draft
him.
though.
They
No.
traded. They traded to. Hold on. Did the
Ron, you
Spurs move
understand
up
what
to
the
get
difference
Kawhi?
is
Hold on.
drafting
Time out.
and-
Yes,
no,
chill.
no,
Obviously.
no,
Did
no,
they
no, you
trade
don't.
up to get Kawhi?
Yes, they traded George Hill.
If they traded up to get Kawhi, then essentially they traded up to grab his draft rights because they seen the foresight that they wanted him on their franchise.
Yeah.
Sure.
Why are we
But
arguing?
then, like this one, kind of semantical, but yeah, Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell at 11, good player, but was he the right pick? Jeremy Sohan at 9, good player, but was he the right pick? Stephon Castle this year at 4, was he the right pick? We'll see. Like Tony Parker, Manu, Kawhi, and then the 3 number 1 picks is what's carrying their whole history of drafting. When they don't have a surefire pick, for the most part, it's been I'll give you DeJounte as well. DeJounte at 29 was a good pick. But like generally speaking,
See, I knew it was somebody else forgetting. See, y'all wasn't even gonna bring it up.
All I'm saying
Doug Moore's
is
integrity.
I wouldn't put them in the OKC tier. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't put them in the OKC.
Yeah,
I would
OKC
not
is
say
great.
what I'm saying.
So look at OKC last year. They draft.
OKC got surefire picks too. What?
That's what we're
I
talking
understand that, but
James Harden, surefire pick. Russell Westbrook, surefire pick. Kevin Durant, surefire pick, and he fell into their lap. They shouldn't even got
Peyton Wallace, not a surefire pick.
KD, yes. Russ was not a surefire pick. I don't know. where
Yes, he
got
was, Morris.
that. No, he wasn't. Russ was not a
I was here in Seattle when we got him. Yes, he was.
That doesn't change the fact that he wasn't a surefire pick just because you guys
All right.
thought he was.
Okay.
I didn't even know he was on point guard yet.
my
What do you
point
mean
is,
surefire pick?
So just like Penn said, you can play him together. He had the talent. He had this. He had that. He was the most athletically gifted player that you would see in years.
He was a surefire pick when he was that offensively flawed. He was viewed as an
he was the guy to take right there. Russ is still offensively flawed.
By the way,
But-
Russ
but
was
he-
not
but
a
he-
top
but he-
5 pick that
He
year.
wasn't even
But he
offensively great.
he has tools that are undeniable.
Okay,
At
Russ.
that time,
Russ,
he was not seen as this.
they were accused of
ultimate pick. That
reaching
was-
for Russ. Just to be clear, they were accused of reaching for Russ when they picked him 4th. That was not obvious. I remember it very clearly. That was not obvious. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but that was not obvious. And James Harden, sure, you could say that was fairly obvious. KD was fairly obvious, but I'm not talking the last 20 years. I'm talking the last little while. Okay,
Right.
Chet Holmgren, great pick, right? Casey Wallace last year, great pick. Do you think Jalen Williams, great pick, right? Isaiah Joe, great pickup.
Looking
right?
at a mock drafts has Russell Westbrook at 10 right now from before.
There you go. There we go. That's my point. And that it's the same case.
So he was
with
projected
Dwayne
as a top 10 pick, which means he could have went anywhere
He was
between.
projected as a lottery.
No,
But
chill.
that doesn't-
Top
Is it
5,
is it projected that he could have went anywhere between 5 and 10, or was
No.
he just?
I'm seeing one that's got him at 6, but like the point being is at 4 that was not seen as just.
It was
the
not
logical pick,
obvious.
he's the
That's
best
my
player
point.
available.
Right?
Brook
You had
Lopez
to
was projected above
reach.
him. Jared Bayless, like he wasn't.
Shout out Jared Bayless.
He wasn't consensus number. It wasn't like, oh well, now Michael Beasley, Derrick Rose, and OJ Mayo are gone. Russ is the next pick. That wasn't a conversation.
I think what we just saw the Pelicans do will defeat this whole drafting for need versus drafting for the best player right away. They had Herb Jones, they had Trey Murphy. So first of all, they had to have the foresight to even draft those two guys together, knowing that, yeah, maybe they play the same position at times. Maybe they occupy the same areas in the court. And then they followed that up with a top 8 pick, Dyson Daniels. Now, how does that make sense? How can those players play together? They have so many of the same skills. Well, guess what? They figured out what they work with. They figured out what other teams don't have. They figured out what is a valuable asset. And now they have flipped Dyson Daniels for the point guard that didn't exist in the draft when they were drafting. That's asset management 101. That's why you pick the best player. Dyson Daniels was not the right fit.
I could get with that.
Right?
That part I could get with.
If the Portland Trailblazers passed on Michael Jordan because they had Clyde Drexler, that's a mistake. It's a mistake. Number one, they can play together. Number two, it's just a mistake. It's a flawed philosophy. And when I see a
backcourt, Paxson was an all-star. They were good in the backcourt. Jim Paxson was an all-star. Drex was becoming that. They were good. We didn't know that Jordan was going to be that good. We didn't. We did not know that. And they needed a big man. And on top of that, we already had a really damn good two guard. So it wasn't like that it wasn't like in the backcourt they had a backcourt that was just good. Paxson was an all-star. Drex was becoming that. The very next year he made the all-star team. So
you don't think Drexler you don't think Drexler and Jordan could have played together?
I don't think that at that time what they were building and what we all knew about Jordan at that time was the same. No. Because they drafted Terry Porter, the lead guard.
Well, hold on. They got Terry Porter. When did they get Terry Porter?
I think in 84.
They got him.
I think he was number 24 pick in that draft, either 84 or 85.
Well, hold on. Who did they get ahead of Jordan that year? It was Sam
Bowie and Olajuwon.
I'm gonna see when Terry Porter came in.
I want to say it was either 80. It was either 80.
85 NBA drafts. He was
85.
He was
right. 24.
So like the Jordan and the Luka thing, it does sound crazy hindsight looking at it. But in chill, I don't know what was Sam Bowie's draft profile coming in and whatnot. But
he was made of glass. But they drafted him anyway. He was because he was a big. Yeah, he was made of glass.
He had his doubts.
He sat out 2 years. He had a broken leg.
Oh well, yeah, they're retarded for that.
He sat out 2 years. Yeah, he sat out 2 years. He had a broken leg, and they still drafted him.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know, and I was in Sacramento at this moment in time. I was living in the Northern California area. People were genuinely excited about Marvin Bagley coming. They were genuinely excited about pairing him with De'Aaron Fox. Ox, I tell you, I remember I would hear all day, every day. Ox had something to say about De'Aaron and Marvin Bagley every single day. This is before the panel, but chill. As you know, you and your man's growing up, you got to debating basketball each and every day. That used to be me and Ox. And I would hear De'Aaron Fox and Marvin Bagley comments every single day. They were excited in Sacramento about this duo. Just so turns out, Marvin Bagley wasn't really that good.
My buddy coached him. My buddy saw him, played in the NBA. His name's Terry, played for the Clippers. He saw Marvin Bagley. He couldn't talk enough about him. He's going to be this. He's going to be that. He thought he was, he's 6'10". He could put it on the floor. I ain't never seen nothing like this and blah, 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 blah. So
I was high on Marvin Bagley too. I had him at like 2 or 3 because I wasn't high on DeAndre Ayton. I had Luka 1 and then like Bagley and MPJ as my 2 and 3. I didn't care about MPJ's back problems. Right. I just, in hindsight, probably should have cared a bit more than I did. But that's why I've changed my opinion on back injuries a lot more. MPJ is kind of like the reason for that. Just watching him move is drastically different. But at the time, I had MPJ in my top 3 because that talent was just ridiculous.
Does drafting a big man with Marvin's wingspan not concern you defensively? 6'10", 6'11" wingspan, not a huge shot blocker, not a great defender. I can understand the appeal. Look, I've seen Marvin Bagley in open runs, and he's been the most talented player in the gym. And when you see him going up against just a slightly lesser talent level, you're like, oh my God, this guy looks like an MVP. You could really sell yourself on Marvin Bagley, but this is where it becomes very appropriate to gauge who are you doing this against, right? James Wiseman, you look at bigger players, just generally, I think the bias should be backwards. I think you should be very wary of big players at youth levels. I think you should be very wary of it, and you need to be very careful about how they're dominating, and you need to shit test it to hell, because there are some bigs that frankly are just dominating because they're big. They're just closer to the rim. They don't have to jump as much. They're running out. They're outrunning everybody, and they're playing guys who just aren't on their level. But that's going to change when you get to the NBA. You know, you take a guy like Hashim Thabit. Look at all the draft busts and tell me how many of them are 6'11" or taller.
But Marvin Bagley was skilled. Hashim Thabit was just tall and very long.
Just big. He was just big.
But with very lacked in major basketball skills. Marvin Bagley was extremely skilled. His athleticism was extremely functional. Now, defensively, I had concerns. And in terms of like processing the game, in terms of playmaking, all of those things, I had concerns. But the touch around the basket, the finesse, the back to the basket game, the jump, the shooting potential, the ability the ability to put the ball on the floor. That for me was like, that's the power forward I would want to build my team with. Around, I don't know, but with, and I see it. Defensively, not so much, but I see it. Like the agility, the fluidity, it all just made sense. Now, if he had a negative wingspan, would I be more like concerned? Yeah, but he had like a 7-foot wingspan, I believe. So like slightly positive, I think. I might be wrong. Like for me, he was a top 3 prospect in that draft. Everything just, and then watching him in college, it was like, he crazy. I'm not gonna lie. For me, he was the best player.
He was getting to it at Duke, Mars.
He was the best player in college basketball, in my opinion. That's how good I thought he was. So, yeah, I had him very high, and it didn't work out, so I was wrong. But
how you felt about Bagley? That's how I saw Ayton. I was like, you can build my unit around him. And when Phoenix got him, I thought that it was a good thing. That now you got Book and you got DeAndre Ayton, and then they end up trading for Mikal Bridges. I was like, they're on their way to doing something, because it looked like it was now working. Like we're actually putting this thing together, as opposed to what it had been in the past. Phoenix was just bad. It looked like they had now, because that's when I think about teams drafting, I'm thinking about, what is your plan? Who are you putting around your franchise player? What's the timeline here? And when I saw that I think Book had like a 5-year stretch where he's averaging like 25 a game, but it was all empty because Phoenix was garbage. But then you get DeAndre Ayton, you get a big guy in here. So now I get a double guy in here who's going to help rebound. He's going to be good around the rim. He's a skilled big guy. I love them coming out of college. And then you get the defensive guy in Mikal Bridges, who fits alongside a Book. Now what are we missing? We're missing our lead guard. We already got our big. We already got our defense. We already got our 2 guard and bucket getter. And we got our big. We got our 2 guard. We got our defensive guy. Now we need a lead guard and we need a dirty work guy. That's the difference right there. And it looked like they had a plan when they were building that thing. That's what I'm going for. What fits? Who is the franchise player here? It looks like they were building that thing around Book. Book is your franchise player. I go get a big guy, put him around him. Then I go get a wing who can defend, who can also score. Now I need a lead guard.
All right, y'all. Well, as of right now, it's L Kings, L Ox, and they just have to eat that bad pick that they made, unfortunately. But you guys still do have a shot. You guys have a pretty good team. You have some young players, so maybe time will actually tell, and Vlade Divac will be right. But moving along, we have some other better things to get into. Richard Jefferson made some comments talking about Anthony Davis. He alluded to Anthony Davis potentially. Well, let me just play it. Let me know if you guys can hear this or not.
AD is in his prime. If he ends his career, in my opinion, he will be the most talented player to end his career without an MVP or a defensive player of the year. He needs to be in that conversation this season.
So much more.
That's bold.
That's bold.
Is it true? AD is in his prime. If he ends his career, in my opinion, he will be the most talented player to end his career without an MVP or a defensive player of the year. He needs to be in that conversation this season.
So
I don't hate that.
I'm gonna
remember, Mars.
Like Luka Dončić because he's young, but he's up there. Dwayne Wade,
Elgin Baylor.
Damn, how I forget about D Wade?
Jerry West.
But
like in terms of talent, I see it.
Isaiah Thomas, Scottie Pippen, Chris Paul, John Havlicek,
Mhm.
John Stockton, Pat Ewing, right?
Definitely.
Mhm.
Rick Barry, Jason Kidd. So I call Cap.
He's
Chip
more
Love.
talented than a lot of the names you just said.
But
He's
not
more
all of them.
talented than not all
Is
of them.
he more talented than all of them? Is the question. He could be talented than half of them. He could be talented than.
I mean, I'd have the conversation about Dwayne Wade. This is not a conversation where I'm going to start talking about guys.
First of all,
before
how are we defining talent? That's a good place to start. Because if we're saying like basketball talent, like skills, or are we talking impact? Because if we're talking impact,
Does
I think
impact the
Kawhi
talent?
was more impactful.
Nah,
at his
talent is like skill, gifts.
Yes.
Like it's your ability on the
Yes.
basketball.
I don't think impact is a result of that talent.
Impact can just be impact for me is like if you're really good, you're going to be very impactful, but someone can be more talented than you and less impactful.
So he's more talented than Dwight Howard.
Yes.
He's more talented than Damian Lillard.
Yes.
I don't think he's more talented than Scottie Pippen.
I don't think he's more talented than Scottie Pippen.
We can have that conversation for sure.
We
can have that convo.
I do not.
We can talk about it, but I think it's okay. Do you guys think it's a conversation, or you think it's just
we can talk about it 100%. It's not a wash, Mars. No, 100%. It's no.
Hey,
it's not
Mars,
a wash.
No,
Mars, you can knock on the door, and we could. I mean, we still gonna leave the door chained up, but we can open it.
No. Take the chain off, Ron.
Oh, we can open the door.
Open the door. Come on in. Let's talk about.
Come sit on the couch
right here. Come on in. And
okay, all right. So it's a full-on conversation. It's damn near debate.
Well, the reason why we're talking about it is because if you look at what Anthony Davis is as a defender, right? You look at what Anthony Davis is as a defender, a roamer, a one-on-one defender, a glass cleaner, and how much he affects the game. I mean, I feel like that's on par with what Scottie Pippen did. I feel like Scottie Pippen might have been a little bit more versatile as a defender, where he can guard not just wings. He can guard point guards. Full court, he can disrupt your offense like that. Anthony Davis can disrupt your offense from a rim protector standpoint, and in the post, I won't argue that. But when I think about Scottie, I think Scottie was a little bit more versatile as a defender. I think Scottie Pippen was a little bit more tougher as a defender, and I think that he gave you a little bit more. Now, offensively, I feel like Scottie, offensively, I think he was a little bit more talented because I think we could use him in different spaces. I mean, Anthony Davis, he wasn't the passer Scottie was, which means that now that limits him on the box. We could put Scottie on the box. We could put Scottie in the mid post. Scottie's ability to recognize defenses and process defenses. Anthony Davis wasn't as good at that. And we're talking, and again, we're just talking about from a talent standpoint, Ron. We're not talking about from a production standpoint. We're talking strictly from a talent standpoint. When I'm able to put you on the block at 6'8", 6'9", and now I'm able to navigate the offense through you, and you are able to make passes that other guys at your size and even smaller than you or bigger than you can't make, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's not even more talented than Tracy McGrady. Talent? Is he more talented than Carmelo Anthony?
Yes.
Talent.
Yes.
Offensively or all around?
No. Where's
all around talent?
Where's that at, Mars, when you're talking about Carmelo Anthony and Anthony Davis? Where are you looking at the talent at?
I think I don't know. Maybe I need to know everyone's definition of talent because I feel like we're equating talent.
That's exactly it, right? So if we just said greatness, like I don't know, I think we can get a whole new can of worms there. What? Okay, here's a question. Scottie Pippen played 464 games without Michael Jordan in his NBA career. What do you suspect his record was in those games?
He had a winning record.
464. He went to Portland, and then you had the years. Probably like you said 464, right?
Yeah.
Played 464 games without Jordan.
He won 300.
No, 325 and 139, something like that.
He for sure.
He was 293 and 171. Close.
Oh, that was close. Yeah, it was close.
That is an overwhelmingly winning record. That's like he was basically on the best team in the league every single year, number one seed type of winning record without Jordan. With Jordan, he won 6 championships. I would argue he played his prime with Jordan, right?
Which he did.
Mm-hmm. He did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Pippen AD conversation is not even close. I really do. I think there's like tiers, and I think right now, unless something really changes for Anthony Davis, I think Pippen's on a different tier. Like,
well,
So
just
Mars-
AD's not gonna become more talented now. Like the talent
what I'm saying.
conversation, like that
This is what
ship is
this is.
sailed.
Let's
Which is
let's
why I'm
keep it
asking,
there.
what does talent like? I need to ask what when you hear the word this guy's more talented, what do you think of instantly? What to you is talent? That's how we have to discuss the conversation.
How you play basketball. Like when I watch you as a basketball player, how you move, how you shoot, how fast you run. I think athleticism is a byproduct of talent. I think IQ is also a byproduct of talent too. Like, do you know how to play? Do you know what you're doing? I think your skill level, I think your skill set, that how you incorporate your skill set, I think that's a talent also. Because Mars, I could be super nice with the ball. If I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know how to get to where it's necessary, then it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make a difference how good I am. That's a talent to know how to get to where I'm trying to go. Those are the things that I think about when I think about talent.
Pam. Oh, Ron.
I want to say talent is your ability just to be good at certain areas of basketball, no matter how it looks, no matter how you do it. So you could get it done athletically, you could get it done skill wise, you can get it done. However, like certain guys score differently, but he's able to score, so he's talented because he's able to score. Certain guys get blocks differently, but you're able to get blocks because you're talented enough to make that happen no matter how you do it. Certain guys get rebounds in different ways. You may be a guy who boxes out and uses your muscles. You may be a guy that just out jumps everybody. You may be a guy that just watches all your teammates box out and you just run for loose balls. However, you're talented enough to go get those rebounds. I think talent is just your ability to get things done on the court.
I think it's force, pressure, it's gravity, it's a lot of things. Like ultimately, it's how you're creating and taking away space on the basketball court, and that is ultimately done through athleticism, like Derrick Rose. It can be done through size and just like that push, like Shaquille O'Neal, like brute force. It can be done through shooting and space generation, like Steph Curry. But ultimately, when you're on the court, you're a problem. Like one guy can't guard you. That's talent. And then on the defensive end, no one needs to help you. I guess that would be talent as well, right? The ability to mold and shift. And then I also think portability and versatility are a talent, right? Because not everyone can do it. So when you get a guy like Scottie Pippen who could legit guard 4 positions, arguably sometimes 5 positions, that is a talent because it is rare, right? I'm not saying AD is not talented. What I am saying is I think Jason Kidd is more talented, right? I think Scottie Pippen is more talented. I think Tracy McGrady is more talented at his peak, although his peak was not as long, you could argue. But I think Tracy McGrady was a bigger problem in the basketball court in his best year than Anthony Davis was, even if that's closer. I think Carmelo Anthony is more talented offensively, but the defensive element of it leaves some doubt. And yeah, I think there's about 5 to 6. Dwayne Wade is 100% more talented. Like that to me is like unquestionable. D-Wade, defensive, offensive impact as a first option, winning a championship, as a second option, being the ultimate Batman than the ultimate Robin. I think D-Wade has proven it more so than Anthony Davis. Well, what has Anthony Davis done that puts him above those guys is my question. I think the burden of proof is on Richard Jefferson for saying this, because I don't think if he asked the average NBA person, like, who is the best, I don't think anyone would say Anthony Davis. So if he's saying Anthony Davis, you tell me why it's not Scottie Pippen. You tell me why it's not these other guys that are better than him.
Well, by your metric of talent, I can understand saying Dwayne Wade, Scottie, Jason Kidd still kind of confusing, but generally I can understand it. For me, when I hear the word talent, I just think, I mean, the literal definition is about just natural proficiency or something. But when I hear talent, I just think of your baseline, what you can do at your floor. What are you capable of doing without skill development, without being taught the game? Just what are you physically capable of doing on a basketball court? So when I think of the most talented players ever, I think Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron James, Shaq, Anthony Davis, Zion, those type of, like, if you're Anthony Davis at his baseline is a 6'11" human being who moves extremely quickly up and down, moves very well laterally. The mobility is off the charts. The perception, the dexterity, just the way he can control his body are all second to none. All of those things are talents. Now, when I think about skill, I think of things you can develop. Kyrie Irving, one of the most skilled players ever. His baseline as a ball handler is going to be better than me. But he wasn't born just being able to dribble like that. That's not something you're born with.
Well, wait a minute. Now, hold on, Mars, and I want you to keep going. Stay right there, Mars. He wasn't born being able to dribble that way, right? But I'm pretty sure you've heard the term, he's a natural. So he might have picked up a basketball and
he was born with a higher proficiency than the average person.
He was able to dribble. Okay, he knows how to do that. And then let's develop that.
Yes.
Okay.
But that development is not development is not talent to me. That development is skill. The talent
and it's raw.
The talent to me is your baseline. Like I always say, talent means nothing without the skill work, in my opinion. Steph Curry, as a baseline, can shoot better than me, as we'll see on the PC weekend footage. He can shoot better than me. But him being able to shoot as well as he does is not just because of talent. The baseline of what he could do, that's talent. But the development and all the hours and all that, that's the skill. So you got the skill of shooting, which is how good you become at something through the hard work and all of those things. The talent is how good you are naturally, to me. Anthony Davis just as a natural basketball talent. You can't teach that size. You can't teach that mobility. You can't teach that dexterity. You can't teach the fluidity, mobility, all of those things. Then just the understanding of the game, IQ. Without being taught the game, the feel for defense, understanding where to be, how to make rotations. Like LeBron James says about how like he could understand how to flip plays at 8 years old or whatever he said. That's talent. That's IQ. You can't teach that. You can understand the game at a higher level. Like you can become smarter. But that high level of IQ, that Jokic level, that Luka level, that LeBron level, that's not achievable by just watching more film. That's a natural proficiency that they can work on and become better at. But they already had a baseline level of feel and IQ that you can't teach. That's talented. So when I think of talent, for me, it's Anthony Davis in terms of non-MVPs, non-defensive player of the years. Anthony Davis, Dwayne Wade. I can throw Scotty in there. He has a defensive player of the year. I can throw Scotty in there. For me, that might be where the love stops. For me, unless I'm forgetting someone like crazy, but that for me might be where I put a stop to it.
To counter your point, Mars, when you talk about Anthony Davis, a lot of the stuff that just looks natural. I won't argue. You can't teach 6'10", run fast, jump high. You can't teach that. I'm just that, right? And a lot of the stuff that looks natural with him. I mean, I could say the same thing about Scottie Pippen. A lot of the stuff, his fluidity, the way he gets up and down the floor, his ability to handle the ball, not just his ability to handle the ball, the know-how. Now, that developed over time, but it looked like something that it was natural initially. It just, I always equate natural talents to like mathematicians. What I mean when I say that is, but a mathematician, the numbers just make sense. You can't really teach them a lot. Like when they see numbers, it just makes sense to them. And Anthony Davis, a guy who steps on the court, basketball, he doesn't look like the type of guy that you got to teach him a lot. It looks like it just makes sense. I think Scottie Pippen is the same way, which would explain why when he got into that new offense in the triangle, he picked it up as quickly as he did and he thrived in it because it just made sense to him. I feel like that's a natural ability to be able to do something like that.
I agree. That's why I don't know for sure if it is AD. I'm not saying AD is for sure the most talented. For me, the conversation would be Dwayne Wade and AD for me. But then I think I would probably favor AD because of the size, which like that's something you can't teach. Like you can't teach 6'11". It's just when you're moving like that, 6'11". But then also you got AD was just very offensively fluid. He developed that. Pretty much all of his offense is
6'11". Like why are we not giving enough credit to someone like Tracy McGrady, who is damn near 6'9" and could play like a guard? Like Anthony Davis is very coordinated for a 6'11" player, but he's not coordinated for a guard. Tracy McGrady is 6'9", and honestly, I've never seen a player at that size move the way he does. And I would argue he peaked just a tad higher. So I don't think Richard Jefferson is necessarily saying, like, again, how much value are you giving for like the building blocks of continuity over time. How much value are you giving to that? Because in terms of the most talented player, when I think about talent, I'm thinking Tracy McGrady easy over AD. He could do things on the court that AD can't even dream of, and he's almost as big as him. You see them standing next to each other; they're not that far apart. But one of them could legit play guard. And I mean, like, you know, this talent thing, it opens up a brilliant conversation about Lamar Odom versus, you know, someone who had 10 times a career as Lamar
like
Odom.
that too. I do like that too.
Lamar was crazy talented.
Super talented. But like, does it matter what you do with your talent? Because you know, Ben Simmons is hella talented. Can't shoot.
True.
Really
True.
talented.
This is another
right?
one. I would consider Ben Simmons for sure.
But again, Ben Simmons versus Luka Dončić, right? 6'6" pudgy guy, you know, now slow-footed, etc., versus this 6'10" athletic demon who can guard 5 positions. But I'll tell you what, the mental has to be part of this. It has to be part of it, because that's what's going to win you MVPs anyways. Perseverance, grit, toughness, will to fight over a screen, the intelligence to learn your offensive scheme, the wherewithal to not, you know, to prep, right? That's the stuff that people don't get right. That's what makes people successful long term. The fact that you're willing to stay in the sky, you know, with your assistant coaches and work on your game after practice. That's what's going to make you successful. We very much misread what creates MVPs in the first place. MVPs are a matter of attrition and grit and work and reps. And I'm sorry, it's also about mental toughness. It is about, you know, willing to play through pain. I'm sorry, I'm not describing Anthony Davis.
Yeah, personally, I think it's a few people that I would take over AD in this conversation, and I hate the whole talent thing, because at the end of the day, Mars, if you're, and that is a good definition, but at the end of the day, being more talented doesn't mean anything. If you stayed at your floor, and even if your floor was higher than mine and I exceeded my floor, then I'm just better than you. So like floors, I guess when you're drafting, floors are cool. Like talent is cool, but at the end of the day, like once we get into the NBA, that talent shit doesn't mean anything. Who's going to develop their skills? Who's going to get better? Who's going to work harder? Who mentally has it and who mentally doesn't? Ben Simmons, you know, like that. All of that's what's going to, you know, determine what type of player you are at the end of the day. So I don't really, talent is cool, but I just tend to overlook that, because once these players get in the league, all that talent shit goes out the window.
Well, I guess, but I mean, talent is what, if you got something to, like, we praise people who exceed expectations, and the reason we view them as exceeding expectations is because you didn't see the talent level compared to someone who is clearly more talented, but you see the work and the dedication. Like, you praise that because they weren't as talented. Or when someone is extremely talented and they don't pan out, the reason you're disappointed in a Ben Simmons is because you saw how talented he was. So that's why I think talent is relevant, because when we discuss these players, we discuss them relative to their talent. We don't compare LeBron James to CJ McCollum, because LeBron James was vastly the more talented player. We don't hold every NBA player to the same standard universally, because we understand some players are more talented than others, and you start from different points. And if you start from the point up here and you only get to here, we're not going to hold you in as high regard as someone who starts from down here and gets up here, because this guy clearly didn't have the advantages you had and was able to get to that level. And it's the same, like I say this all the time about Shaq. The reason Shaq gets held in lower regard is because his talent was up here. And even though he got to here, it's like, well, with the talent being here, you probably should have got all the way up here, but you didn't. So even though he was better than a lot of people, he doesn't get the praise he does as the other people would, because, like, for example, like Kobe and Shaq. Shaq's talent is up here. Kobe's talent, extremely talented, but compared to Shaq, probably about here. But they both got to here. So that's why Kobe gets so much praise for that. And Shaq probably gets viewed as an underachiever, because relative to their talent, you expected Shaq to be more. And Kobe got about everything he could out of what his talent was. That's why you praise those different things. So I think talent is relevant just within that context. But if you're going to say this guy's better because he's more talented, I don't agree with that. But I don't think anyone does that. But when we talk about talent, it's about expectations, about what you were capable of, all of those things. And I think it's a relevant thing to discuss, like Ben Simmons' talent. I think that's relevant, but does it mean he's better than Luka Dončić because he may or may not have been more talented? Not saying he was, but he may or may not have been. Does that mean he's better than Luka? No. But it does mean he's probably a huge disappointment based on the talent level. So I think that's why talent can be
Is
interesting.
mental
to discuss.
toughness a talent?
I think so.
I do
Okay,
too.
so do I. And so when we take a guy who gets injured or a guy who has a really bad playoff series and he crumbles and he's not the same after that, or we take a guy who has a big turnover in the Final Four and he's not quite the same player after that,
Like Nick Anderson, for example,
or like Chris Webber.
or Weber. Sure.
And so you take those moments, and if you're going to malign the player who didn't live up to their talent as being, someone who didn't exceed or the expectations that you put on them, then you need to add that into the qualification of the player who massively exceeded what you thought they could do. Because if one player is deficient because they didn't do what you expected them to do, then the other player must be overly sufficient in something that they had, right? Like Steph Curry battling through all those injuries. We just talked about it. Like guards, early injuries, how it can cripple them, made Steph stronger, made Steph better. Michael Jordan had a huge injury, came back, reinvented his game, came back, reinvented his game again. That perseverance and stick-to-itiveness is in itself a talent. The ability to get up every single day and to do it again, to fail and get back again, to build yourself up, to keep at that grind, that is a talent. Mental toughness to fight through. How many players we've seen fade in a long series? They just can't get through it. They just fall apart in those final games. So then someone like Michael Jordan must be extremely talented for not having ever gone to a game 7 in the finals to punish that inefficiency. That's what I'm saying. Like, that mental toughness is a talent in itself. Durability is a talent. If we're talking natural gifts, then a player who is extremely durable, like LeBron James, is talented in that regard. Whereas a player like Greg Oden, who falls apart like a toothpick, is untalented in that regard. So it's just such a broad term. Talent is like cool. Like what the hell is cool? It's like that's talent to me. It's a very weird term. And we need more specific things.
Being able to hold up is not a talent, yo.
Well,
No,
sometimes your body just built better. Like Greg Oden had one leg shorter than the other.
Okay. So
Like he was just destined to get hurt. LeBron's body composition was that of someone like along with all the money he put in. Let's clarify. But sometimes people are just more prone to injuries. That's because they're built differently. So I would say it's talent to be able to be as healthy as possible. Now, some of it, and then also the work to do so. Like I said, LeBron James putting all that money.
IQ comes in, sure.
But like it starts with a talent. If LeBron James was built like Kawhi Leonard, no disrespect to Kawhi, no matter how much money he put in, he was not gonna last.
No.
But because he was built like LeBron James, I think that's a talent in some regards. So
we're including something genetic, like Anthony Davis being 6'10", 6'11", and moving the way he does. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, a lot of that is genetics. A lot of what you're talking about there is genetics. It's not all genetics. I mean, he had to grow up playing point guard. He had to move a certain way. He had to build those patterns and whatever. But
stay right there, Penn. Stay right there. Stay right there. Stay right. I was just about to say that, Moss. Stay right there, Penn, because he did go from 6'2" to 6'10" in like a summer. But keep going.
And that can make you injury prone, by the way. Having those big growth spurts can make you a little bit injury prone. Right. What I'm saying is he built up those guard skills. The fact that he's 6'10", if we're going to consider that a talent, if we're saying he's more talented than Kawhi because look at his size, if we're going to say he's more talented than Dwayne Wade and look at his size, well, then why can't I say look at his durability? If size is a skill, if size is talent, because that's definitely part of the talent, then why is durability and mental toughness not part of the talent? Is what I'm saying. It's just
I think they are. I just think Anthony Davis is mentally tough. The durability I can understand as a concern, but I think he's mentally tough. I mean, coming back from all the injuries you spoke of, dealing with a lot of the things he's had to do in terms of the criticism.
Has he disappeared in big playoff series?
I don't think Anthony Davis, and this might be a hot take, I don't think Anthony Davis has ever had one bad playoff series.
He's just been hurt.
I can't think of one time Anthony Davis has played badly in the playoffs.
But see, the thing about Anthony Davis, and this is why I want to bring it back to the initial statement. I actually want to break it up. I want to break up the MVP and the DPOY because I agree with the DPOY simply because of what Marv said. Anthony Davis doesn't have to provide a ton of offensive value or as much as you guys would like because his value on the defensive end and on the glass is out of this world. So he can still impact a series positively and significantly just on the defensive end. Everything that he gives you on the offensive end, that's just additive. To me, in my eyes. Obviously, we have a certain expectation for AD on the offensive end, but AD doesn't have to average 30 points in a series to be effective.
I think we've already established, Ron, that AD is a defensive player who can score. I think we've already
Yeah.
And he developed that scoring.
He wasn't always a bucket
Kentucky,
getter.
He
was not
couldn't
always a
score.
bucket getter. He's a defensive player who later on developed his ability to score, and he became elite at that. But ultimately, he's a defender. That's who that's who he ultimately is.
One of the most talented defenders I've ever seen.
100%.
And so that's what I'm saying, Mars. With the DPOY part, I'm 100% on board. He can for sure be the most talented defensive player to never win a Defensive Player of the Year award. I still do want to talk about Scottie Pippen.
Scottie, yeah.
I already want to talk about Wemby, but AD can be in that one for sure. I'll give it to Richard Jefferson. The MVP talk, I'm not riding that train at all. Not one bit. Even if it was a free ride, I'm not buying that.
So who you got?
Scottie Pippen that was mentioned. Yo, Mars, it's been about 15 names that was mentioned that I got just MVP wise that have been just as talented or more talented than AD that I would have expected to win an MVP. T-Mac, D Wade, Kawhi never won an MVP. So, and once again, I'm breaking them up. He said DPOY or MVP.
How is Kawhi
so now
more
I'm just
talented than Anthony Davis?
I think he's more talented offensively.
Scorer, and he's a more versatile
But he wasn't
defender.
that when he came into he wasn't a good offensive player when that was skill. That's not talent.
But he
Kawhi
developed that skill though, Mars.
Yeah, but that's not
He had the
talent.
he had the talent to
Kawhi
develop
was a
that.
horrible shooter. He wasn't a ball handler. His
Right.
floor vision was bad. Offensively, he was not. The only thing he did really good was run the floor. That was
Right.
it.
And then
Where's the offensive talent? Where's the offensive
He
talent?
wasn't a
Not
great
skill.
defender.
He said offensively. That's what I'm bringing up.
Leonard when
Where's the offensive talent for Kawhi? He came
when
into
Leonard
the league as
first
a bad
showed up,
offensive player.
he was a defender. He was not a bucket getter.
He's
He
not even more.
became a bucket getter.
Kawhi's not even more talented offensively than Paul George. Paul George came into the league a better offensive player than Kawhi.
Yeah, so Mars, that was with your definition of talent,
No,
but
offensive
let's
player.
stay there though. Let's stay in your definition. I did say offensively. You could say, well, AD wasn't that talented offensively either coming into the league. But either way it goes, let's take talent off the board, or let's take offense off the board. Let's just do the whole thing. I don't know. I can't necessarily say that Kawhi was more talented than AD coming into the league, but I'm
He was
necessarily not
16th
just talking
overall.
about talent.
What was AD coming into the NBA? What was he?
He
was considered a generational prospect. He was the number one overall
Prospect based on
his talent, but
defense.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Leonard, when Leonard showed up, what was Leonard coming into the league?
A great defender.
That's it. And he turned into that bucket getter. Anthony Davis at his best as a bucket getter is he? I'll expand it. Anthony Davis at his best as an offensive player, is he better than Leonard at his best as an offensive player?
No. Absolutely not. No. Negative.
I won't argue that. I won't. And I think
Who had the best defensive season out of those two?
Anthony Davis.
I think so.
You disagree, Penn?
Dude, I watched.
You may have reinforcements if you do.
I mean, I watched the guy at what? How old was Kawhi when he won Finals MVP for the first time?
23.
Leonard, yeah.
That was against LeBron James at his
2014. Peak. Yeah, I'll check.
LeBron James at his peak. The level of defender that this guy was, you can talk all you want about being flanked by a good defense. You can
22.
talk about the coach.
22.
James averaged almost 30 a game against him in the finals. Let's stop talking like he shut the door on him. No, he didn't.
I mean, you can play great.
Look at the
defense.
percentages.
Well, I mean, in the series, his percentages were great, but you'd have to find a matchup there.
But to your point, he was one of the youngest Finals MVPs. Keep going.
He won that Finals MVP largely for going up against the best player in the world at the time, who was coming off of 2 straight Finals MVPs and 2 straight championships.
Sure.
Yeah,
on a team.
It was also because he had 3 straight 20-point games.
And on top of the 3 straight 20-point games, can we not leave out how freight train, no breaks offense that San Antonio offense was? Can we not leave that out? It wasn't like it was Leonard who threw that crew on his back. He was a product of what was going on with that San Antonio offense. 100% he was. And he wasn't nearly in 2014 what he was in 16 or 17. He wasn't that. He became much better at that point. Much better. Now,
I do want to say Kawhi was fairly talented coming out of school, though.
I'm not
Well, I mean, when you just break everything down,
offensively, I don't think so. But as an overall talent, yeah.
Well, I think he was a little better offensively than we give him credit for. But when we just break him down, like just everything he could do, Kawhi wasn't just trash off or just talent wise. The dude was athletic. This is before we even knew about the knee part. Athletic, 6'7", strong, long. Obviously a rangy defender. He still had some offensive attributes that you could that were positive. You know, he still could hit a one dribble pull up. Well, he wasn't the best 3-point shooter, but I mean his rookie year he shot 37 from 3. He since he's touched the NBA, Kawhi has been a very good 3-point shooter.
They were mainly open shots. They were mainly stationary shots, and they were being generated by one of the greatest offenses in
college. He was a
credit where credit is due.
Yeah, for sure.
I understand. But he wasn't more talented coming into the league than Paul George. He wasn't more talented than Lamar Odom. He wasn't even more talented than Darius Miles. He definitely wasn't more talented than like 85% of the lead guard type of guys that you're talking about. He wasn't more talented than them, right?
I don't think he's more talented than Amen Thompson, sir.
I can see that. That's not crazy at all. First off, look at where they was drafted.
Hold on.
I don't think that means he's going to become better than Kawhi, but I think Amen Thompson is the more talented player.
This is the same Amen Thompson who you don't think can develop a jump shot, Mars.
Yeah, because that's like a skill, not he like that's the.
He's
one
already a better
lacks.
passer than Kawhi.
Shooting, but the feel for the game I think is higher. The passing ability higher. The athleticism is through the roof. Like the athletic gifts and tools he has compared to Kawhi, and Kawhi was a really good athlete.
That's what I was about to mention. I mean,
Amen is a one-of-one athlete. Amen is a one-of-one athlete, in my opinion.
One?
He is a freak athlete.
I say one-of-one, not to say he's the best athlete ever.
He's like 6'7", 6'8".
You don't see athletes like Amen Thompson regularly. That's what I mean by one-of-one. Like he's a once every few years type athlete. You don't see Amen Thompson's come around. That alongside the feel for the game and all of those things, there's not the combination of feel plus athleticism is enough for me to say he's a more talented player than Kawhi is. Now, is he going to become Kawhi? I doubt it.
We don't know.
Kawhi at his best is one of the best players ever. So if he can become that, that's great. But as a pure talent, I'll take Amen Thompson. I'll take Zion Williamson. I'll obviously take Anthony Davis. Wemby goes without saying. Chet, I think Chet's more talented.
At the peak of their talents, what's the peak of Kawhi Leonard's talent? 19?
No.
But the peak of his ability, the peak of his ability to me is 2021.
Yeah, chill. Moore's his talent and ability / skill is completely different. Talent is you at your floor. So essentially, you when you get drafted or maybe year one or even in college, that's your talent. Basically, like your floor of what you could be. Before you have basically honed your skills and added on to that talent.
So what you're telling me, Ron, is how talented are you to develop these skills? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, just what's your floor is.
Because it sounded to me like
how good are you if you've never picked up a basketball, right? And you just get thrown on a court. How good are you? You've never played basketball.
I don't know nothing about this. I just stepped on the floor. I don't know anything about this.
What are you capable of doing?
Right.
Amen Thompson gets put on a basketball court. He's 6'7", the best athlete out there, and
So
somehow he just sees the game at a speed that many people can't.
Okay,
see.
I'm with you. Okay,
that's just what you can do naturally.
Okay,
that's
how natural are you?
And then at your best is what do you turn into? So Kawhi Leonard turning into the scorer he turned into, turning into the mid-range assassin, turning into that 3-point shooter, developing the playmaking, allowing the game to slow down for him while still being one of the best defenders in the league.
If that's your definition, I would argue Carmelo Anthony is a better player than Steph Curry.
I wouldn't be mad if someone said Carmelo is more talented than Steph. I wouldn't be mad.
Based on what?
Based on the fact that if I'm running a 5-on-5, no offense, no implementation, no coaching, I'm just playing pickup, and I need a guy to be a scorer for me, I'll pick.
No, Penn, those two things don't work because Mars's point is I never played basketball before. I don't know anything about this. I'm stepping onto the floor. It's like picking up a baseball.
You never played basketball before? You never played with that team before?
This is what Mars is saying. I'm just a natural. What is my natural ability when I step out here? Like when Elijah Wan started playing basketball. Like when Elijah Wan started playing basketball. He was a soccer player.
Joel
what is-
Embiid's another
Yeah,
one. Like,
what does this look like? Okay, I see the footwork. The footwork is there. I see the physical attributes. He can run fast and he can jump high. He's good with the ball. He doesn't really know how to dribble like that, but he's good with the ball. So now I can hone these things in terms of his talent. These are things that are natural. Now I can develop the rest of that stuff.
Fellas, I want to transition off of this talent conversation. That was a good conversation, though. Before we move on, I do want to highlight just the ascension of Kawhi Leonard, going from drafted as a project. He did start 39 games as a rookie.
He was
to starting all games his sophomore year, averaged 11 points, but wasn't really considered too highly. Like we liked him, but we didn't think he was going to be anything spectacular at that moment in time. To the next year, getting Defensive Player of the Year talks, second team all defense. Obviously, that was the year they were in the championship with the Heat. Ray Allen hit that shot. To the next year, becoming the Defensive Player of the Year, averaging 16 points, leading the league in steals, first team all defense, even got some MVP votes as well. He was top 10 in MVP votes. To the next year, being this coming second in MVP votes, winning the Defensive Player again for the second year, being an all-star, averaging 21 points, 6 rebounds, couple assists, 2 steals. To the next year, top 3 in MVP votes, first team All-NBA, first team All-Defense, averaging 25 and 6. Kawhi Leonard was bad. And his what he did, how he climbed up the ranks, I think that's one of the better success stories that we don't talk about.
Meanwhile, Penn, I gotta listen to these dudes tell me that Kawhi Leonard is the best Raptor of all time.
He is.
No, he's not.
No, he isn't. Ron,
Kawhi Leonard is the best player to ever wear a Raptors jersey.
Those two things are not the same.
But he's not
as a Raptor though.
Okay. Hakeem notwithstanding.
No,
but he's the best player to ever play for the Raptors. But in terms of Raptors' career, I don't think he's number 1.
He's not even close.
I have Kyle Lowry, so
I think the only right answer, if you're talking all-time peak as a Raptor, like peak relevance, it's Vince. If you're talking career value over time, it's got to be Kyle. If you're talking single greatest playoff run in Raptors history, you're talking Kawhi. But no one means that, because y'all didn't use that logic for any other team.
Yeah, we did.
Literally nobody. You
we
just
did.
used it for the Raptors. That
we did.
I thought was crazy.
What other teams do we use it for?
We used it. Giannis has a better argument for the Bucks, then, if that's the case.
Get him, Swiper.
Giannis has a better argument
than Kareem, 1,000%. He means more to that franchise long term.
How's that?
No. You did not use a single playoff run to override.
No, I said a year. I don't know where you're getting from.
Relevance.
He has the best season start to finish ever of any Raptor. Period.
He played 56 games.
Who has a better regular season than Kawhi?
Vince Carter led the league in votes.
You said
Vince
this
Carter led the
panel
league in
that
votes
day
and
too.
everyone.
You said, name me another Raptor who had an MVP season. I'll name you 2. Vince Carter and Vince Carter. Vince Carter 2000, 2001. You could laugh your ass off. I don't really care. You're not looking at the stats. You're not really looking at the stats.
I'm not.
You didn't watch the
MVP
game.
level seasons. I'm good.
Okay.
Well, Vince Carter led the league.
First off, I'm older than you, young man. But then on the other end of this, I was a Vince Carter fan. I was a Vince Carter fan.
You're not older than me. You look older than me. You're not
or no, actually, I look younger. I have comments made about my Bama was like, man.
Can we get back focused, please? Can we do that? Can we get back focused, please?
Vince Carter led the league in vote. I don't know why that's being ignored.
What seasons are these?
2001.
Hold on.
In a league,
here are the leaders
track,
in value of replacement from 2000 to 2009. Just find the outlier. Shaquille O'Neal 2000, Vince Carter 2001, 2002 was Tim Duncan, 2003 Tracy McGrady, 2004 KG, 2005 KG, 2006 LeBron, 2007 LeBron, 2008 LeBron, 2009 LeBron. You're telling me that Vince Carter didn't have an MVP season because you weren't watching.
What year?
2000, 2001. The year they went,
AI
one game.
AI, Duncan, Shaquille, Chris Webber, Kevin Garnett, Tracy McGrady, Karl Malone, Jason Kidd, Kobe Bryant, David Robinson.
What are you looking at? You're looking at MVP votes. I'm talking about value of a replacement.
Oh, so he finished 11th in MVP voting that year.
Irrelevant.
Oh, okay.
Because
Where did Kawhi
as you know,
finish in
Mr.
2019?
Media, you know that the media only catches on
He
the
finished
next year,
ninth.
and unfortunately, Vince got hurt
Alright,
the
he
next
called
year.
him
Oh, but so that's an MVP season because he came ninth. But Vince
Respect.
Carter 11th was
Respect.
not an MVP finisher.
Respect. He
Okay,
played 56 games that year.
Look,
Okay.
it is clear to me that the best Raptors season ever.
And he played
was
60
Vince.
games too, by the way.
Okay,
Yeah, look at y'all lying. Crazy.
You said it.
Kawhi played 60 games, and according to you, he barely played defense. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
You don't think he was better that year than Vince Carter was that year?
No, he was not.
Pull the tape up. Pull the stat head up.
Swiper, please stop. I watched every single one of those. I watched the
we won't
first
get
one. I
into
watched
that.
the
Head up,
second one.
Mars.
You're talking to a guy who watched every one of those games
Vince
twice.
Carter averaged more points.
More assists.
I'm pretty sure he averaged more assists. Yeah.
He had a higher value replacement. I'm pretty sure he had a higher box plus minus, if not
Where the hell
almost
is Kawhi?
equivalent.
Yeah, he averaged more assists.
He played
averaged
more games.
1.5 less rebounds. Win shares 9.5 to 12.9. So he had higher win shares.
2020.
Then you look at the efficiency. Vince Carter what was his true shooting?
Mars taking
Vince-
too long. I'm looking it up.
Vince Carter 55% true shooting in 2001. Kawhi Leonard in 2019 had a
60.
60% true shooting, I think 61.
And context matters here too, because it
let me just look
matters that
relatively
Kawhi
fast.
was on a much better team. Like we're talking night and day better team. So my point is, you take 2001 Vince Carter and you just drop him on the 18-19 Raptors. That is a massive upgrade on 17-18 DeMar DeRozan. Like we're talking leap years.
Sure.
And Vince Carter won 47 games with a team that had Antonio Davis as his second best player.
I know a guy that won 48 games with Monte Morris, the second best player.
Yeah, but you're talking about one of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah, Kawhi. You mean Kawhi?
He's on my Jokic.
Kawhi.
You're
Kawhi.
talking about Jokic.
Kawhi. One of the best ever.
I'm
No
just
one
saying
is
Vince
debating
had. I'm
Kawhi
just saying
is a
Vince
better
had an
player of all
MVP
time
caliber
than Vince
season.
Carter.
That's all.
He
What I'm
did, he
saying
did.
is,
He
no,
had a top
I am
10
saying
finishing,
that Vince
top
Carter's
10 year.
Raptors resume, because the best version of Kawhi was not Raptors Kawhi. The best playoff series that Kawhi ever had was not as a Raptor. I mean, you could argue his best
2021.
playoff run, start to finish, is the one that everybody followed because he was this mercenary up in the North. But I'm sick and tired of people talking like he did this by himself. He did not do this by himself. And by the way, just an FYI, when Vince Carter started going down, the Raptors pretty much faded to lottery. Okay, when Kawhi Leonard left, they replaced him with Stanley Johnson, and we're on pace to win more games without him. That's the greatest Raptor ever. Come on, Swiper.
What does that mean to me?
It's because he won. It's because he won the
Just
championship.
because the math is
That's why.
complicated doesn't mean the math is not true, Swiper.
So you think?
I mean, it's not
They
just
won
that, Morris.
59
Like
games
Kawhi was
before
carrying
showed up.
that year. Whether you
hold
like
on.
it or not,
No,
like
that's
yes,
not
it
true.
was a good team, but Kawhi carried that team.
No, he didn't.
What does carried mean? What does carried mean?
What the hell does that mean? No, he did not carry.
Wow,
Jokic
revisionist
carried.
history.
Jokic is different. Jokic is a
Revisionist
different level.
history. I don't know. I've seen to watch that
between-
76er series too, but whatever.
I just want to know what carrying means. That's why.
Kawhi
He did
was
everything. He
Yeah.
did
No,
everything,
he
Ron.
didn't.
He
70
did-
So-
That's
so-
76er
so
series.
Kawhi
This is what carrying means, Moss. He did everything. He threw the unit on his back. He took them to the NBA championship.
What was the record without him that
All
year?
of
Oh
them- all of-
well, then if you just believe that, then you're just wrong.
I mean,
Just absolute bullshit. Hold on. The year before Kawhi got there, they won 59 games. The year they had Kawhi, they won
Number
58
one seed.
games. The
Number one
year
seed.
after Kawhi left, and they replaced him with Stanley Johnson and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. Yes, let me say that again. They replaced Kawhi Leonard,
Pretty good
the
players,
greatest
high
Raptor of all
draft
time,
picks.
according to you, with Stanley Johnson, possibly the worst Raptor ever, and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, and they were on pace for 61
wins.
wins.
so
So
Ken,
the
how come
worst
none of
year of
these
those
years
3
they
years
didn't
regular season
sniff
was
the
Kawhi.
championship?
Huh?
Since they were so good, how come none of these years they didn't sniff the championship? DeMar
Championships are a
DeRozan,
matter
Kyle
of
Lowry,
luck, Ron. You
Stanley
know that.
Johnson,
But
all
y'all
of this.
done.
they didn't
There was not
Are
enough
we
luck in
gonna
the world to
shit
get y'all
on
ring
the
in any other
Sacramento
era.
Kings with Mike Bibby and Chris Webber because they didn't win a
They weren't good
championship?
enough.
No,
weren't good
we're not
enough.
going to do that because we're going to give a team credit for being really good. And if you're gonna tell me that this team was carried by Kawhi, well then what was their record
He
without
was.
Kawhi? It
So
matters.
DeMar DeRozan could not carry them the way Kawhi carried
this is
them.
the
It took
craziest
Kawhi
argument
and his
ever,
talent and
Ron.
his greatness to
Y'all
be able
were
to have
wrong
them
3 days
run
ago,
through
you're
the
wrong
East,
today.
to have them run through
Okay,
the
but
East and win the championship.
They didn't run
No.
through the East. Far
Dude,
from running.
When
this
LeBron
They made it
James
through the
left
East. They
Cleveland,
fought through the
Cleveland
East.
fell.
Yeah, they fought.
They fought through the East.
Is
It's
it
something that they
possible-
could not do with DeMar DeRozan.
Is it? Yep. Is
if
it
you're
possible
gonna
that a team
act
is it
like
possible that a
Kawhi
team just
is
doesn't have
doing
someone
for the
carrying them? They're just
Raptors,
good?
which he did not, what LeBron did for Cavaliers,
Who said
that's just
that?
not true. If you're
Who
gonna
said
act
that,
like
though?
he did, y'all act like you're acting like he's doing what Jokic is doing for Denver. It's just not true. The numbers don't back that up.
What's the difference?
Does it have
What's
to
the
be
The
difference?
Jokic,
difference is
though?
enormous. The difference is if Jokic doesn't play, Denver doesn't have a chance. That's the difference. If Jokic doesn't play,
If Kawhi didn't play, they didn't have a chance either. I just
That's
brought up
Ron, they
DeMar
lost the
DeRozan.
next
They weren't
year,
able
Ron.
to
That's
do it with DeMar
bullshit.
DeRozan.
Because the
Talking
next
about
year,
just because you
they
paid
lost in the
attention to one series,
semifinals
They
to the
did
Boston
not have a
Celtics. They would have
chance,
been
chill.
they would have been
They
right
didn't
back
have a
there.
snowball's dying chance in hell
What
to make it
happened?
to the
Take Joe-
championship.
Okay,
What are
take
you?
Joe-
What?
they won 60 games the year after he left. Had
And
it
did
not
they
been
have a
for short
chance to win the championship? Yes or no?
I mean, they were in that series against Boston.
Bro, they went
They
down
lose
to
in,
game
they
7
lose in
against
6
Boston.
games to the Celtics to
Game
get back to
7.
the Eastern Conference Championship. What happens to the Denver Nuggets? Take Joker off.
I'm
that
not
team. Are they a
comparing
playoff
Kawhi
team?
to Jokic.
Yeah,
That's not what I'm doing.
I don't care about the Jokic
But you're
thing. I'm just saying
talking about
they
him
were very
the way
close to making
one
the
would talk
conference
about
finals the next
Jokic.
year.
And
Very
that's
close.
just
They were
not
right
fact.
there.
Hey, Bam Adebayo. Thank you, Bam. Thank you. Go ahead. Read that super chat.
Bam Adebayo, as addressed by Swiper, said no one cared about the baby dinos before Kawhi gave them that chip. Joke City,
That's not
joke
true.
franchise, and
That's
no
not true.
one had them winning
That's
when
not
he
true.
got traded there.
Probably-
That's
probably-
not
I wouldn't
true.
say
Probably-
Toronto
From
Jackson.
2013
And
to
not too much on-
2021, the
not too much on
Raptors were
Toronto,
the
not too much on
second
Toronto.
winningest team in the NBA behind the Golden State Warriors.
Oh
Fact
my
check me on
gosh.
that.
In
It's
the
true.
Eastern Conference, number one.
No one cares.
Number one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
in
don't
the
care.
East, they were number one.
You don't care, and I don't care that you don't care.
Y'all
It
are the
doesn't matter
Arsenal.
to me.
How's
You
it gonna be
were
the
not the
Arsenal of the
barometer
NBA?
of relevance in the NBA. The world cared. Okay, the world did care. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying 30-9 in the playoffs and 2 steals. 39-4 and 2 steals in the playoffs isn't carrying. If that's not carrying, I don't know what else is.
Oh, come
D-Wade
on,
D-Wade
Ron.
does
What's wrong with
it.
this?
D-Wade does it. He
Bull-
carries Shaq.
Oh,
D-Wade
my
does it. He
God.
carries Shaq. Bron does it. He carried his team. Anybody else that averages
D-Wade
30 on a
carries Shaq. Shaq averaged
anybody
30
that
in the
averages
playoffs.
30 on a
me
playoff
personally-
run.
Well, me personally, I wouldn't say D-Wade carried the Heat. in
No,
those
he
seasons.
did not, Marcus. No, he didn't. He got busy in the finals, Ron. Shaq averaged 20 and 10 in those playoffs. What are you talking about?
I
He was
respect
getting triple
Kawhi.
teamed
I
in the
respect
finals.
Kawhi a lot for the year that he had here. He didn't
Doesn't
have
sound
to
like it.
play. He didn't have to play through pain in the playoffs. He was great. It was beautiful to watch.
You wouldn't have a
Please.
ring without him. Doesn't sound like you're super thankful.
This is such a petty, ridiculous way
It
of
is.
thinking about it.
It
He
is,
wouldn't
man,
have. He
because with
wouldn't
this
have.
logic
He
right
wouldn't
here,
have
Nick
that
Foles
ring
is better
without
than
his
Donovan
supporting
McNabb.
cast either.
You already
I'm
have one.
sorry. Hold on.
already have
How
one.
many rings has Kawhi Leonard won since he left?
None.
How many
Zero.
playoff
man.
rounds
That's
has
how
he
Wait,
won
many.
hold on.
since he
No,
left?
wait,
That's
no,
how
chill.
many.
But that
Come
I'm not
on,
bringing
That's
up
how
man.
many.
Context,
I'm
And
saying
please.
according to
That's
Swiper's
nasty.
logic, according to Swiper's
No,
logic,
don't do
man, Nick-
Swiper's
I
logic.
absolutely am doing it because you're going up for one season. So Nick Foles is better than Donovan
I
McNabb.
haven't even been a part of this conversation. I
Foles
was
is
in
better
media
than
day.
Donovan
There's
McNabb.
media day just now.
That's
I wasn't
what
even
I'm
here.
talking about. Nick Foles
Chill,
is better than
no,
Donovan
but
McNabb.
you know
Who
that
said that?
that's a nasty comparison. Chill,
Why is
you
it a
know
nasty
that.
comparison? He had one
Because
season.
he did-
He won a
Didn't
one
he-
Super Bowl
wait,
with
hold
it.
on. Did he go to
That's
four
what you're
straight
basing
NFC
this on.
championships?
You're basing this on one season.
Vince did it first.
No, wait. Didn't he go
Vince
to 4
did it
straight
longer.
NFC championships?
Vince
Chill?
did it
Fine.
better. Just
He
because he
did
didn't win
what
a
first?
championship.
What did he do first?
He did everything first,
He did not have the season that Kawhi had.
bro. He,
Respectfully, he
Yes,
didn't. I
he
know you guys
did.
are saying he led the league in VORP and all of that good stuff. He wasn't the player that Kawhi was.
It's
They
funny,
didn't come-
no-
they
like,
didn't-
the
bro,
revisionism
they didn't come
shit,
second
no
in the-
one,
in the
No one
East.
was praising this Kawhi season.
this is
until
irrelevant,
the playoffs.
Ron. He won the first.
'Cause I remember
playoff
the,
series
narrative.
in
the
regular
narrative-
season.
Martin,
The narrative
because it wasn't that
Do
big
you
of a
remember what the
deal.
Raptors
The
were
narrative
before Vince got
pre-playoffs was
there?
about how the Raptors are just as good without Kawhi. That was the narrative. I remember.
Bro,
And then they won the
when
championship.
Vince
All of a sudden,
Carter,
oh, Kawhi had an
hold up,
all-time
hold up.
season.
Let me-
No one was
let me-
saying that.
let me clarify something. When Vince Carter got there, the Raptors were an absolute joke of a franchise. They didn't know what they were doing organizationally or culturally or anything. Okay. Vince put them on a map. Vince brought them to the playoffs as their best player in his second year, got beat by the Knicks, went back the next year, lost Tracy McGrady, which Lord knows that duo could have run the league for a decade, lost Tracy McGrady, won the Raptors their first playoff series, nearly won them their second playoff series. And by the way, the Sixers' toughest opponent prior to the Lakers was the Raptors. Kobe Bean Bryant on record. Had it not been for Tracy McGrady going to Orlando, we would have faced the Raptors in the finals. Okay. Now, if you want to tell me right now that Kawhi Leonard would have won a championship without Marc Gasol doing what he did to Joel Embiid, you're crazy. You're
But
crazy.
That's not how teams work, bro.
But
Well,
It matters who your supporting cast is. You're
I
asking.
didn't
You
use
broad
the word
brush.
carry.
You
I don't
broad
think I've
brush
used the word
Kawhi Leonard's
carry on
impact
PC,
like
actually.
he carried a bunch
That's
of
what I'm
bums.
talking to people
Like
who
the
said
team
that.
didn't win nearly 60 games with him, and the year before and the year after. I'm sorry. When I look at great players who legit carried, I see like a 20-win drop off when they leave. I didn't see that with Kawhi. I'm sorry, but I saw. You know who I did see that with? I saw that with Vince, because the year after, when Vince was hurt, they didn't make the playoffs. The year after that, he was hurt again. They didn't make the playoffs.
Well,
It
their team also
matters
wasn't
to
as
me
good either,
that if
so.
you're such a great player, that the team is worse when you're off the court. That just makes sense. What if I told you that the Nuggets were better with Jokic on the bench? I think you would lose your mind, because that would never happen.
Were the
Are you
Raptors
saying that
Raptors better with Kawhi on the bench that year?
Thank you. Like,
The
come
Raptors
on.
had a 17-5
No, I
record.
said when he was
Hold
on the
on,
bench. When he was on the
Sliper.
bench.
The Raptors had a 17-5 record in games Kawhi did not play that year.
You said on the bench. I'm asking for question answers. What's he better when they're on the bench?
Their most optimal lineup included him, but it was
okay.
not
So you
anywhere
lied.
close.
So you lied.
No,
I
he
didn't.
didn't lie, Swiper. You turning that into something else. Of course,
That's
they're
what
a
he
better
said.
team.
He said they were better when he was on the
Of course,
bench.
they're a better team.
Chill.
No,
That's what he
of course
said.
they're a-
I
this is
said-
bullshit.
I
Because
said
of course
that
they're a better
Chill,
team
who
when he's
cussed
on the
that?
floor. Of course they're a better team when he's on the floor. That's not the question.
This cussing is
That's-
crazy.
that-
Have I
that's-
Chill, have I
that's
ever
not
cussed
the
at you?
question.
Have I ever
That's not-
cussed at you?
Because this is nonsense what you're trying to do. None of us are arguing that they're not a better team when Leonard is on the floor. Nobody's saying that. But when
That's
he's
what he
on
just
the
said.
floor,
No.
that's not
What I'm saying is it's nowhere near the drop off that you're talking about when you talk about teams being carried. And what
I
I'm
don't think
saying
he was-
is
I don't think
when
he
LeBron
carried.
left Cleveland. Cleveland went from
He's
going
not
to the finals
LeBron.
every year to going to the lottery.
But he's not LeBron. He's
Okay,
not a
why are you
floor
talking
raiser like
about him
that.
like he's LeBron
LeBron
to
wanted
you?
LeBron's
really?
the
He's
best
not.
floor
Whoa,
raiser
stop
ever.
right there, Swiper. You just said he's not a floor raiser like that.
No,
You think
I
he's the
said-
best player in the history of that organization?
I don't
That's
think he's
floor
the
raising.
best. No, it's not. No,
Yes,
actually, it's
yes,
not.
it
That's not
is.
true. That's not true. That's not true.
You
I don't
wiped out
think
nearly
you don't have to be
300
the best floor raiser
You
ever
think
to
he's
be
the
the
best player in the
ever.
history of their organization?
He
How
is
is
the
that
best player.
not
He had the
floor
best
raising?
season.
No, he
1000%.
didn't.
He did.
And
He did have the
literally
best
not
season.
true, objectively not true.
That's
And if
not.
you
He
gave
didn't-
Vince Carter,
So you're saying it's
hold on.
objectively not
Two
true
thirds
that
of
he
the
didn't
game?
have the best
So in
season
the
ever
year
with the
that Vince
Raptors?
Carter led
One
the league in
season he
work,
played
if he had
two-thirds of
Shaquille
the
O'Neal
game.
on his team, he'd win a championship too.
And
No, he wouldn't.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
So championships are not
Well, guess
everything.
what? We can't. We'll never know. That was 18 years
And by
later.
the way, just an FYI, Kawhi Leonard walked into a team that had been regularly making the playoffs and getting like 40, 50, 60 wins, got to the Eastern Conference Finals. Just an FYI, every single team that has won a championship, not every single team, most teams, with the exception of the Boston Celtics in 08-09, have had plenty of playoff scars and failures in the 3 years prior to. I believe I did the math on this. The average team to win a championship has won 55 games in the 3 years prior to winning a championship, which means you got to get bounced a few times to make it through. The guy who was getting bounced all those years was Kyle Lowry. He was by far the best player on those teams, and you didn't give him any love. You just handed
Because
it to the
Kyle
guy
Lowry
who showed
was
up
not
at the
going
finish
to
line.
win a championship. If you don't get Kawhi Leonard, who had already won a championship, a Finals MVP, and comes and elevates his game in the playoffs,
teams win championships.
oh, absolutely. But Kawhi was clearly the best player on that team.
I just don't get how you do all this when I pick Clyde Drexler for the Blazers and not Bill Walton, but whatever.
He was the best player on the team that won.
Because I was
Yes.
making the case for Bill Walton. All of a
Nobody's
sudden,
arguing
all of
that.
this just went out the window. When it was Bill
And
Walton.
Morris,
But when
that's
it's
cool.
Kawhi,
But,
it makes sense.
let's not act like Clyde Drexler didn't do things in the playoffs. Let's not act like he didn't drag that team to the.
Let's
And I don't
not
want to
act
say
like
drag.
Morris
Let's
Butler
not act
didn't
like
do
I
things.
don't want to say. I don't want to say drag. I want to say let's not act like he wasn't the best player on that
Okay,
team for
say that.
multiple deep playoff runs and including a finals run where if it wasn't for Michael Jordan, he more than likely gets a ring. So I'm saying like yeah, like this is. Comparing Vince to Kawhi is not the same thing as comparing Bill Walton to Clyde. It's not.
When you,
Well,
when you
I'm
say
comparing-
that
well,
Kawhi
I'm going
carried,
with
you
Kyle Lowry.
undermine the crazy depth that team had. You undermine the years of success that went into building that roster. You undermine the incredible roster moves that had to happen. You undermine Serge Ibaka willing to come off the bench in his prime for Marc Gasol. You undermine Norman Powell's growth. You undermine Pascal Siakam. You undermine Kyle Lowry's continued grit and willingness to get over himself because his best friend was traded. You're undermining a coach who was very inventive. I'm sorry. There's 100 people that are responsible for every championship, from scouting departments to training departments to G League development to all these people. And we unfortunately broad brush it to one guy because that's the easy narrative to
Yes,
tell.
because he was that good.
Kawhi Leonard did not build the winning culture in Toronto, bro. He did not win them. He did not win them a championship. He was the leading scorer on a championship team. Come correct.
He was the leading scorer.
Hold
The
on,
point of attack
Who
defender.
was the best defender on the 19 Raptors in your opinion? The most impactful defender?
It's three people that you could potentially say. I think you could you can say Kyle Lowry, you can say Kawhi, and you can say Marc Gasol.
Pick somebody, Ron. Which one was it?
I'm gonna say Kawhi.
Okay, the world knows it was Marc Gasol, but if you want to say Kawhi, that's fine.
I'm gonna say Kawhi. I don't want to say the
Joe
world
Embiid
knows.
The world does.
You could potentially say that, but Marc Gasol, like I said, it was three people. What?
I mean,
Yeah,
Pascal
I'm
would be in
about
that
$100
conversation
super
too.
You can say Marc Gasol. Like I said, I mentioned them. I said it's potentially three people you could say, but I'm gonna go with Kawhi.
Well, you could say four because Pascal would be in the conversation if Kawhi's in the conversation too. But the Raptors won. The Raptors won because they were an all-time great postseason defense, and that goes to way more than Kawhi's contributions. Even if you think he was the best defender on the team, the idea of he carried the team when the reason they even got through the East and won the championship is because of their defense, which anyone knows, if there's one thing that is mainly predicated on team, is defense, and they won because of their defense. Kawhi did not carry the team.
So did Allen Iverson carry the Sixers?
I mean, you know how I feel about it.
Offensively,
that ain't even
offensively,
you are not comparing.
Yeah,
you are not
offensively.
comparing
AI carried
Dikembe Mutombo. What are we doing here?
Offensively, AI carried the team.
If
but
we did
also,
an all-time
the
draft
other part of that is the Philadelphia
roster the
defense
Sixers
in the
had,
01 playoffs wasn't that good. The Philadelphia defense in the regular season was elite. In the playoffs, believe it or not, their offense was better than their defense. So yes, you can say AI carried the team. That makes sense.
Jermaine Jones and Aaron McKee. I don't think Aaron McKee and Jermaine would play on the Raptors. They wouldn't even.
I'm not comparing the teams.
Yes,
I'm not comparing the teams. I'm comparing the situation.
I'm saying it's not the same situation because like I just said, the Philadelphia defense in the regular season was great. Their offense wasn't that good. So if you want to say in the regular season AI wasn't carrying, cool. But in the playoffs where they got to the finals and that's what everyone praises, their offense was better than their defense.
So was the Raptors offense great? So was the Raptors offense great?
It wasn't great.
Okay, then, but Kawhi was.
But I'm saying, but what I'm saying is, if they were winning because of their all-time great playoff defense, and their playoff defense is more than Kawhi, how can you say he carried the team when they were having success because of things outside of Kawhi? They weren't winning because Kawhi was dragging their offense through hell and everything. No, they were winning because their defense was great and their offense was adequate. If you want to say their offense was adequate because of Kawhi, then but then I would still say Kawhi Leonard was a horrible playmaker who Kyle Lowry was extremely valuable for that team. Marc Gasol was a screen setter, was extremely
now you're just trying to nitpick. Now
I'm
we're just
explaining
nitpicking.
I'm explaining how basketball works. I'm explaining how basketball works because Kawhi Leonard was just a factually bad playmaker. He needed Marc Gasol's screens were extremely valuable. Pascal Siakam as a transition player, as a spot up player, as someone who could attack off closeouts, extremely valuable. All of those things contributed to the Raptors being a good enough offense, alongside Kawhi being probably the best isolation scorer in the playoffs, outside of James Harden. But like the best isolation scorer in the playoffs. That were all culminated in success, but that was only relevant because of the fact they had an all-time great playoff defense.
Okay, then. So AI had help too. Then let's mention his help too in offense. Then. Let's mention everybody else who stepped up to make their offense better and all of that good stuff too.
Ron, last I checked in that game, before you go any further, Penn, since you brought that up, Ron, about him not having help, I don't know if you noticed, but Aaron McKee led them in scoring in that game 7 when they beat Toronto. If he doesn't do that,
then, so let's start acknowledging it then. Let's stop calling his teammates garbage then. Let's start acknowledging it.
I agree. I've been trying to make us do that for 3 years, Ron. I've been trying to get us to do that for 3 years. I've been trying to get us to stop hating on that Philly team and acting like they were trash the whole year. And every time I say it, I'm apparently a hater. But now you want to be like, oh, well, you don't use that for Allen Iverson. I ain't been using that for 3 years, Ron. I've been trying to say that. That team wasn't as bad as people say. They just had lacking offensive talent in terms of scoring. But they weren't as bad as people say. That game 7, Penn can probably remember this, when Toronto were doubling the hell out of AI and he had like 25 assists or however many he had. The reason they were still able to win is because in part Vince Carter missed the shot, should have made it. But because other guys were able to benefit off of the gravity AI had and were able to capitalize off of that.
What year was this, Morris?
That's help.
2001.
I know Kawhi in the year that we're talking, when he had a shot to send them to the next round of the playoffs,
against Philly.
His shot went in.
What
Comes
did
full
Kawhi
circle.
shoot that game?
What?
What
I think it was
did
like-
Kawhi shoot that game?
I think he was
Did
like
he make it when it counted?
17
almost
or
40
39.
shots that game.
Did he make it when it counted?
I think he.
Yeah,
I
he
think
ma-
he, shot,
he made
I'm-
it, he
I
traveled,
might be
yeah.
wrong,
Did he
but
make it when it
15
counted?
to
He made it.
40.
Pen, it sounds like you're ungrateful for Kawhi doing
Bro,
what
I
Vince
am
Carter
really
couldn't do
No,
for your
it's
city.
not that he's
Leonard, but
ungrateful.
I
It's just that y'all
resent
turning
this
Leonard
idea
into.
that you're going to give him credit for the entire 30
trying to-
years,
yeah.
man. 30 years.
I'm not giving him credit for the entire thing. I'm merely saying that he was
No.
the best player from start to finish that year for the Raptors. What I'm
Yes,
saying is
he
he
was.
did what nobody else did for the Toronto Raptors. What I'm
Okay.
saying is he was better that year than Vince Carter, whether you
That
like it or
doesn't
not.
That doesn't make you the best player in the history of an organization if from wire to wire, one season, you're the best player ever.
Isn't this
No.
just semantics though? You're not going to convince people that are positioned on the championship.
I just think it's inconsistent. That's what I think.
For
It's
who?
the Raptors seem to be the only franchise where this has been the logic.
Well,
This is
because-
1 year.
well,
It's the Raptors,
I'm
Mars.
trying to figure out who else is the debate. Wilton, Steph. Who else was the debate? That was
It's
short
the
term.
Sonics, Ron. Too soon?
No, it's not too soon. We got a definitive best player over here.
Who?
Gary Payton.
But Dennis Johnson won a championship.
Yeah,
The
but
Finals MVP.
Walked right into that one.
you're right. Actually, it is Dennis. Yeah. You're right.
you
It
see
is
what I
Dennis.
mean?
It is
You
Dennis.
see what I mean?
It is Dennis. But this is the thing, though. Dennis didn't carry the way Kawhi carried.
Kawhi
If
didn't.
these guys carried, if Bill,
Oh, stop.
Kawhi
Oh
didn't
my
care.
God, I'm gonna lose.
So
my
Bill
fucking
Walton
mind
didn't
over here.
carry the way Kawhi did in your opinion?
Bro,
no,
I
Bill
watched
did.
every
But
one
once
of those
again,
games. Kawhi did
Clyde,
not carry.
Clyde had
Did he carry
other
the playmaking
playoff
load?
experience
Okay,
and
so,
stuff like that.
so let
Did he?
Clyde
did he
has
carry-
his whole
did he carry
Portland
the
career.
Playmaking load.
Clyde
No.
has his whole Portland career in Toronto.
Yes.
You pick Clyde over Kawhi for the Raptors?
What do you mean?
So
Exactly
everything
what he just
Clyde
said.
did for Portland.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the-
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
So the
Yes.
reason you pick Kawhi is because Vince just wasn't Clyde. Or Kyle
He
Lowry.
wasn't Clyde.
I'm just making
He
sure I
wasn't
understand.
Clyde.
Okay, so that's the reason you picked Kawhi because
Vince
Vince
Carter
wasn't.
is criminally underrated.
I would say
Criminally
He was
underrated.
he was a top 10.
I'm only asking that just so I can
No.
understand and find a
No,
common
no,
ground.
no. He was a top 5 player in that year that we're in the 2-year period that we're talking about. He was the top 5
Year?
player. I've heard people.
Wait,
He
wait,
won
no,
a
hold on, dude.
championship in 1 year.
Chill.
I'm
Do
not
this.
doing
Do top 5 players of 2001 to 3. Go ahead.
I didn't say
2000
2001 to 2.
So,
I said
so 2001
those
to
2
2003.
years.
So,
What 2
all right,
years?
what,
There's
2000,
one-
2000. So 99 to 2001. Go ahead.
99 to 2000. So Shaq,
Yes.
Malone.
Kobe,
No,
No.
Kobe's not a
I
top
don't think
5
Kobe's
player.
a-
in
Nope.
1999.
Shaq, Kobe.
No,
Not even close.
not
So-
even close. Let me look
Not
this
even
up.
Let's chill out on that.
No, no, no,
Hold
no,
on.
no, no,
Not
no,
better
I'm pulling up
than
the number.
Kobe and 01
Vince was ahead
wasn't
of him.
close to Vince.
I thought he said 99. Wait. Did he say
99 to
99?
2001. Those
Kobe
2
Bryant
years.
was definitely a top 5 player in 2001.
Well, okay,
No,
that's what I just said. You said no.
I'm sorry. You said 99. I thought you just meant
99 to
99.
2001.
1999 to 2001.
Is
So
there
two
only
years
Bryant,
period.
it up now?
Bryant, Malone, Shaq, Duncan, Iverson.
So
Garnett
this
is. I think Garnett is there too.
I think Vince was better. You can make
Think
an argument
Garnett?
for Vince. You can make an argument for Vince.
Tim Duncan.
No, I think Duncan's defense elevated him on top, but I think you can make an argument for Vince as a fringe top 5. We say
J.
fringe
Kidd?
top 5? No, Vince is better.
Vince Carter was a top 10 player. I can understand someone making the argument for top 5, but I'm of the belief that I don't think Kawhi was a top 5 player. So
Look, I think Kawhi, the run that I saw him on from 2016 to 2021, I would argue he's a top 5 player in the league for sure. I put him right there, right below KD, right below LeBron. That's it. Those are the 2 guys. After that, we're like Steph, Kawhi. It's close. Kawhi's really good. I give Kawhi ultimate respect for the championship he won. I resent the idea that he won it by himself because it was a 10-man roster. It was super deep, 11, 12 deep. Okay. And I think that every single time someone says Kawhi carried, you completely ignore how good that team was.
They had a good team, yo.
But
really
you just said
they had a
Steph
good
is
team.
arguable from 16.
no, yeah,
to-
because Steph was hurt. Steph was hurt in 2020.
So?
that,
He was
2020, 21.
But then Kawhi was hurt in 18.
Super Chat franchise was not a laughing stock for decades. They were literally the second most winningest franchise in the NBA from 2013.
They
to
were called the
2021.
LeBronto Raptors. That's a laughing stock, my bro. I'm not gonna lie to you.
No,
Yeah,
that's-
LeBron ended a lot
he
of
owned
teams.
them. Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He
Nobody.
owned them. So what?
They weren't the Nuggets. That didn't exist. Doesn't exist now.
I know a Nuggets fan is not schooling me on the relevance of a franchise. Are you kidding me?
I'm not
Y'all were
schooling you on
laughing
anything.
stock
I'm
of
just
the
saying
entire
that
league
they
for
were a
over
laughing
2
stock at this point in
decades.
time. What'd you say?
against the
that
best
doesn't
player.
that doesn't affect me though, chill. Like
Against the
I know
best
what I
player.
know what I represent.
Nuts,
I know
man.
exactly what I represent. That's
Against the
perfectly
best,
fine.
so they were called LeBronto because they're going up against the best player of his generation.
So
and they can't do
in his
anything.
prime.
even the
But
Lakers.
people did
just-
laugh at the Raptors. We can say that. That's fine.
The
People
reason
were
why
like,
people laughed at them is because of the name, LeBron. Even though people didn't
Yeah.
laugh at Cleveland, even though the Bulls owned them,
Mhm.
with Jordan on the crew. They owned them.
They didn't have a name, did they?
That's because, and so the name is what caused them to be a laughing stock. It wasn't because of what they were
The
doing.
Lakers ain't got a name. They can't beat the Nuggets. What's their name? We should put a name on them now. They're a laughing stock too. Baddies and beaches.
But is it possible? Like,
is so corny.
I don't know if this is it possible that because Kawhi only has the 2019 year. So is it possible that 2019 Kawhi ranked in a similar spot in the NBA as 2001 Vince Carter?
Sure.
Is it,
For some people.
so if that's possible, and Vince Carter also has like another 5 or 6 years in Toronto outside of that.
And he did it first, and he raised the game, and he had the popularity, and he was a leading vote getter in the. He's the I think the only guy that's led the league in vote getting as many times as he has, other than like one other player. That relevance, the
Vote
fact
getting
that everyone's
for
wearing
All-Stars?
Raptor jerseys, that has to
All-Star
count
game,
for
man,
something.
yeah.
The fact that he did it first has
No.
to count for something. The dunk contest has to count for something. You can't just do championship, nothing. Vince Carter made All NBA as a Raptor. Okay.
So did Kawhi.
How did that happen, Ron? You don't
What do you
care about the Toronto Raptors before Vince Carter gets there. You don't.
We did not
You
care
don't
about him
give a
before
fuck
Kawhi
about
got
them.
there.
That's a
You
lie.
did not care about the Raptors, chill.
Ron.
Nobody
That's
up here
not true.
did. Pin,
not
I don't
true.
think you did either. You were probably a
What are you
Knicks or
talking
Nets
about?
fan. Nobody cared about the Raptors with DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. I'm sorry. Nobody
You watch
did.
too much
Nobody
ESPN,
had
Ron.
expectations
You
for
watch
them.
too much
Nobody thought they
ESPN.
was
That's not
going to
true,
win.
Ron. That's
Nobody
not true,
paid
Ron.
attention to them unless they wore them purple jerseys with the
Did anyone care about the
What-
Bucks? Did anyone care about the Nuggets? You're basically describing every small market team that's not the Lakers, not the Heat,
Toronto's
not
a
the
small
Knicks.
market.
Which Toronto is not a small market, by the way.
Toronto is
They have a whole country
third
behind them.
biggest
So I don't,
market.
that's,
Third biggest city.
step up
in
in
North
PR
America.
game. Step up PR game. I don't know. Tell you, you got a country behind you. I don't want to tell you if you think they're a small
I
market.
think it's
The
third biggest
Raptors
city
are a
in
small market when it comes to TV audiences in the United States. They don't get a lot of
In the
national
United
television.
States, they have a country.
So
All
Does,
right.
that doesn't matter to ESPN. That
Oh,
doesn't matter
okay.
to TNT. That
All
certainly doesn't matter when we're looking at the national game schedule. How many games they got on national TV this year?
You know why they had no aura? Nobody cared. That's the point. You're making Ron's point.
They got on national TV because
What?
of Vince, though. They got on national TV a lot.
How many
because of
guys?
Vince.
How many guys have?
2002, 3.
How much aura does LaMelo Ball have? Nobody want to watch the goddamn Charlotte Hornets.
Shit,
What the hell are you
LaMelo,
talking
what?
about?
Chill.
Brandon Miller and LaMelo. You don't want to see that?
I would rather watch them than the Raptors.
This is fun. You know what?
That's your prerogative.
I gotta bounce.
Pen, you realize Ron's just like
Hilarious.
he's just rallying. He's just doing this to get on your nerves. You
I'm
know,
ne-
right?
Yeah, I know.
Now
cool.
all of a sudden, Ron's just doing stuff just to get under people's skin.
No, I think Ron actually believes this shit. Because y'all double down. You both double down on this shit. You double down on this. Kawhi Leonard 60 games basically trumps everything that's ever happened in Raptors history. You know what? You guys are basically answering the question: if a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound? You just weren't paying attention to those Raptors teams with We the North. You didn't care about it. You didn't watch it, so it
You
didn't
just said
happen.
they weren't on
It didn't
television.
happen.
You just said they weren't on television.
That doesn't mean it didn't happen. They weren't on national television in the United States. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. Vince Carter was on national TV, and you throwing him under the bus like he didn't.
I
count.
didn't. I like Vince. I was a big Vince fan. I had the dunks. I had the and ones because of Vince. I love Vince. He's a great player.
Yo, I got to get to these super chats, though. We got to wrap things up. Yersta said, Ron, please, right now, with keeping everything in mind, what Mars is saying, who is more talented, AD or Luka, since one of them is exponentially less athletic than others?
Luka.
I don't know.
All right. That's your answer. Alan L said, yeah, but does fit matter when one player is 10 times better than the guy you drafted? L Kings, L Ox.
I don't think
Realist 123 said, let's be honest, D Rose never evolved after injury. I feel he's been retired for long, and without that gifted MVP, we wouldn't be talking about him.
sounds kind of disrespectful, but
Kind of. Very. The Tribe One said fit is always more important. But when there's an undeniably generational prospect, you got to draft him. Those don't come around often. Lakers in 6.
Complete disagree.
Alan L said AD needs more respect. He's arguably the best defender of his generation.
Yeah, I got him seconds.
Second to
Second to who?
Draymond
Yeah.
Green.
Bam on the bio, Richard.
Bam is not. I view Bam as like the next generation. Like he's the 2020s onwards. AD's the 2010s.
Liam said, Yo, Pin, which player would you rather have on your team? Kyle Lowry or Lamar Odom?
Kyle Lowry, 20 times out of 20. You crazy?
I think Kyle Lowry's underrated, but
So underrated.
Shout out to Kawhi Leonard for making people start actually valuing Kyle Lowry. Smooth
people like
Tube
you saying
said,
like Kyle Lowry was Curry, but anyway, Curry.
Sleep with one eye open, Ron.
Yo, what's that supposed to mean?
Sleep with one eye open.
Some super Kyle Lowry fans gonna sneak up on you for sure. Just the disrespect is crazy.
They're not gonna sneak up on me.
Yeah,
They'll probably have BBLs too. They'll probably knock things over before they get to me. I'll wake up.
What did
Smooth-
Kyle do to you, bro?
Smooth Tube said Ron be sneak dissing on the low. Are y'all seeing these regular chats he be pulling up?
I'll be noticing. It's cool though. Dub Ron.
I have yet to notice. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Okay.
But this is what Drink More Water's talking about. He said Kawhi and Giannis are probably the best cases of two players that came in the league with very little talent and developed to hit their floors or hit their high floors.
I think Giannis is the definition of talent. Personally. But
Right?
By your
Kawhi-
definition, I can see it.
We just
Kawhi
assumed because the guy
not-
slipped in the draft that he's not good. I think if by that definition, why didn't you include Jokic in that example?
yeah, I think Giannis is the definition of talent. He got drafted solely because of how talented he was.
Arch, we addressed it, but I'm gonna read it again. He said, brother, if the franchise was laughing stock for decades, I will take Kawhi. The reason baby dinos have any relevance over jump and dunk win with nothing Vince. Shout out Arch. Liam said, who had more help, Kobe in 2010 or Kawhi in 2019? Who beat better competition? Is any team Kawhi beat equal to the 2010 Celtics?
The Raptors had a really heavy schedule. They faced, there were 4 teams that were supposed to win a championship that year or could have won a championship. The Raptors faced the other 3, and they were the 4th. They faced the Sixers, they faced the Bucks, and they faced the Warriors. Granted, without Katie, but I think they had a really tough road. Super underrated.
I agree.
And the Orlando Magic in round 1.
4-1 reverse sweep.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Jonathan Isaac.
EJB said, one of the happiest days of my life. D Rose will finally be gone from this sport. He should. Yo, EJB, what? He should have been gone from 2014, to be honest.
That's crazy.
That's nuts.
I'm glad it's a happy day for you.
Dookie Blaylocks said, are you guys going to talk about the gospel McCants spoke on Kawhi Leonard? ? This conversation about Leonard was McCants' point how overrated he is.
What did he say?
That he was overrated, apparently.
Kawhi's
I think he's overrated.
I do think some people overrate him.
Y'all overrating him. I don't think he's
But
overrated.
I think some people also underrate him. But I do think some people do overrate him. So
The best 3 years of Kawhi are better than everyone but like 18 players in NBA history. It's like,
is one of them players Dwayne Wade?
yes.
Is one of them players Vince Carter?
Yes.
Wait, so you're saying Kawhi's better than Dwayne Wade?
Yeah. Like the best 3 years of Kawhi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because Dwayne Wade has one of those years. 08,
Is one of them players James Harden?
questionable.
Okay.
Very
So
questionable.
he just said James Harden is better than Dwayne Wade. Just want people to know that.
Nope. Peak tire. Peaked higher for 3 years. It's a very segmented.
Hey, we'll take it. I know Mo in the chat just
3 years.
celebrating right now.
Because that's it. If I break it down to 2 years, then I could say Vince 99, 2000, 2001. It's like it's better than a lot of players, but it's like it matters that you did it for 9 years.
Greatest said episode idea. Just do a top 10 redraft from 1996 until now.
So like a top 10 in each draft, or the top 10 from each of those drafts. So like a top 10 from each draft, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so like Kobe, LeBron.
Mm-hmm. No. From each draft.
Oh, damn. That's like what, 28 drafts, 29 drafts?
It's a lot. We'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that because there's some controversial picks and stuff like that.
I'm good on 2000. That draft stinks.
Yeah, no, it's some real good drafts in there. I appreciate that, Greatest. We may get to that one of these days. Chilltown's biggest fan, 45, said, "Damn, I still ain't found a job, man."
Is his profile Buddy?
No, that's not Buddy.
Okay.
That's another Buddy in another universe. You remember Buddyverse, you know?
Interesting.
One of them. Dirty 30 said Lamar Odom, 6'10" point guard.
Very talented.
Sorry Key said, shout out D Rose, the reason I started watching B-ball. Why William said Penn got the personality of cardboard. Dull, boring.
Damn, that's your
I'm working
Canadian
on
brother too. That's your Canadian brother. That's crazy.
Penn,
Who
I
said it?
disagree for what it's worth.
I don't know, but he sent Canadian dollars, so he
Oh,
Canadian.
damn.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's all
No
good.
love.
It's worth less than the USD.
Damn, so it's worth nothing for her.
Last but not least, Rambo E 1996 said, "This is Ron's nastiest reach in history."
Which one?
I don't know. Yeah, I agree, but I don't know. But I agree. I don't know what he's actually alluding to, but I do agree.
All right, y'all. We up out of here. We'll catch you again tomorrow. Well, we'll talk about one of the divisions. Who knows yet? It was supposed to be the Atlantic division today. Derrick Rose threw a monkey wrench in that. But we'll get back to it tomorrow and next week. And you guys like the video and subscribe on the way out.
Merry Christmas.
Morris, Open Gyms next?
It's Open Gyms on right now. Literally,
Open
it's
Gyms
live
now.
right now. Yes, literally live right now.
I'll see you over there.
Merry Christmas.